Under a blood moon before his entire court, Alpha King Darius Thornhill looked his fated mate dead in the eyes and severed the bond that gods themselves had forged. Lyra Vane, nobody, nothing, a mistake, collapsed on ancient stone while wolves jeered and the world tilted. But she didn't scream, because something else woke up inside her, something darker than rejection, something older than their precious kingdom. Stay with me until the end to see how the girl they threw away became the reckoning they couldn't escape. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. The ceremonial circle stank of old blood and older magic. Lyra could smell both as she stood barefoot on stone that had seen 1,000 rejections, 1,000 acceptances, 1,000 fates decided under moons that didn't give a damn either way. Her feet were freezing. Nobody had told her the ceremony required bare feet. Nobody had told her much of anything, actually. They'd just dragged her from her cell 3 hours ago, shoved her into a white dress that didn't fit, and pointed her toward the northern throne room like she was cattle heading to slaughter. She kind of was. Stand straight. The guard's voice cut through her thoughts. Big guy, scars across his throat. He smelled like iron and wet dog. The king don't like slouching. Lyra straightened. Not because she gave a shit what the king liked, but because her spine was the only thing she had left that was entirely hers. Everything else, her name, her history, her future, belonged to whatever cosmic joke had decided she was fated to mate with Darius Thornhill. Darius. Gods. She'd never even met the man. Move! Another guard shoved her forward. The throne room opened before her like a mouth. Torches lined walls carved from mountain stone. Wolves packed the space. Northern pack, eastern delegates, southern emissaries. Hundreds of eyes. Hundreds of predators. The air vibrated with barely contained dominance, with the kind of power that made lesser wolves piss themselves. Lyra wasn't pissing herself, but her hands were shaking. She balled them into fists as she walked the center aisle. Every step echoed, every breath felt borrowed. The dress dragged against stone, whispering like ghosts, and she wanted to rip the damn thing off, but that would just give them another reason to sneer. They were already sneering. That's her? Someone muttered from the left. Female voice. Amused, cruel. Can't be. Look at her. Pathetic. The gods made a mistake. Lyra kept walking, kept her chin up, kept breathing even though her lungs wanted to collapse. At the far end of the throne room, elevated on a dais of black stone, sat the Alpha King, Darius Thornhill. Even from a distance, he was everything the stories promised. Broad-shouldered, sharp-jawed, dark hair pulled back from a face that could have been carved by something with a vendetta against softness. He wore black leather and wolf fur. No crown. Northern kings didn't need crowns. They needed presence. He had it. Lyra felt it hit her like a physical force as she approached. Dominance rolled off him in waves, the kind of primal authority that made weaker wolves drop to their knees without thinking. Her own wolf stirred, restless, confused. The bond hummed between them, thin, fragile, new. It had snapped into place 3 days ago when she'd turned 21, a golden thread connecting her to a man she'd never wanted, never asked for, never goddamn met. Fate was a bitch with a sick sense of humor. 10 feet from the dais, Lyra stopped. The guards melted back. Silence crashed down like a guillotine. Darius stared at her. His eyes were gray, cold, calculating, empty of anything resembling warmth. He looked at her the way someone might look at a stain on expensive fabric. Distaste, annoyance, dismissal. Lyra Vane. His voice carried through the chamber without effort, deep, controlled, absolute. You claim to be my fated mate. Claim. Like she'd chosen this. Like she'd woken up one morning and decided, hey, let's ruin my life by getting magically tethered to a tyrant. I don't claim anything, Lyra said. Her voice came out steadier than expected. The bond speaks for itself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone laughed. Darius's expression didn't change. The bond. He stood, descending the dais with movements that were too smooth, too controlled, predatory. Tell me, girl, what pack are you from? No pack. Family? Dead. Rank? Lyra's jaw tightened. I don't have one. No pack, no family, no rank. Darius stopped 3 feet away. This close, she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell cedar and snow and something darker underneath. "You're nobody. Apparently I'm your mate." The words came out sharper than she'd intended. His hand moved so fast she almost missed it. Fingers locked around her throat, not squeezing, just holding, a claim, a threat, a demonstration. "Don't." His voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through her bones. "Ever speak to me like that again." Lyra couldn't breathe. Not because of his hand, his grip was loose enough, but because the bond flared white-hot, demanding she submit, demanding she tilt her head back and bare her throat like a good little mate. "Fuck that." She met his eyes. Didn't look away. Didn't flinch. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or annoyance that she wasn't cowering. He released her and stepped back. "The bond is a mistake," Darius announced, addressing the room now. "Look at her. Weak. Common. Unbonded to any pack. She has nothing to offer this kingdom. Nothing to offer me." Lyra's heart hammered. She knew where this was going, had known from the moment they dragged her here. But knowing didn't make it easier. "The moon may have chosen her," Darius continued, "but I have not, and I will not bind myself to dead weight." "Your Majesty." An older wolf stepped forward from the crowd. Graybeard, ceremonial robes, the pack's high priest, or whatever they called him. "The bond is sacred. To reject, I reject her." Darius cut him off, turned back to Lyra. "I, Darius Thornhill, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, reject you, Lyra Vane, as my mate. I sever this bond. I deny this fate." The words hit like bullets. The bond screamed. Lyra felt it tear. Not gently, not a clean break, but a violent ripping that started in her chest and spread like wildfire through every nerve. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Her knees buckled. She hit stone hard, hands slamming down to catch herself, and the world tilted sideways. Someone was screaming. It took her a second to realize it was her. But then the scream cut off because something else surged up to replace it. Something cold. Something vast. Something that felt like it had been sleeping at the bottom of her soul and just woke the fuck up. The pain vanished. Lyra's vision cleared. She was still on her knees, but she wasn't shaking anymore. Wasn't crying. Wasn't doing any of the pathetic things a rejected mate was supposed to do. She was calm. Too calm. Around her, wolves were staring. Darius had stepped back, his expression unreadable. The priest looked horrified. "Get her out of here," Darius said. Hands grabbed her arms, hauled her up, started dragging her toward the side exit. Lyra didn't resist, didn't fight, didn't say a word. But as they pulled her through the doorway, she looked back once, met Darius's eyes, and smiled. They threw her in a cell, not a nice one. Stone floor, metal bars, a bucket in the corner that reeked of piss and despair. No blanket, no light except what filtered in from the corridor, cold enough that her breath misted. Lyra sat against the back wall and waited. The pain should have been worse. Rejected mates usually went catatonic for days, sometimes weeks. The bond severing was supposed to feel like losing a limb, phantom agony that never quite faded. She felt fine, better than fine, actually. Her mind was clearer than it had been in years, her senses sharper. She could hear guards talking 3 cells down, could smell the fear sweat on the Omega 2 doors over, could feel the vibrations of footsteps on stone before they got close. Something was wrong with her, or something was very, very right. Hours passed, maybe a full day, hard to tell in the dark. Finally, footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. The cell door swung open. 2 guards entered, faces hidden behind helmets. One carried shackles. "On your feet." Lyra stood. Let them chain her wrists. Let them march her down corridors that smelled like mold and old violence. Let them shove her into a courtyard where dawn was just starting to break, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. A crowd had gathered, smaller than the throne room assembly, but still significant. Wolves from various packs, all watching with the kind of anticipation people got when they knew blood was coming. In the center of the courtyard stood Darius, and beside him, a woman Lyra had never seen before. Tall, beautiful in a sharp-edged way, red hair that caught the early light like fire, She wore leather armor and carried herself like someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. Lyra Vane. Darius's voice cut through the morning air. You have been judged unworthy of the bond and unfit for this kingdom. By northern law, you are hereby exiled. You will leave these lands before sunset. If you return, you will be killed on sight. Exile, not execution. Generous, really, considering some rejected mates just got their throats cut to save everyone the trouble. Any last words? The red-haired woman asked. Her voice dripped with amusement. Mockery. Lyra looked at her, then at Darius, then at the crowd of wolves who'd come to watch her get discarded like trash. Yeah, Lyra said. I have some words. The woman smirked. This should be entertaining. You think you're breaking me. Lyra's voice was quiet, but it carried. You think rejection is the worst thing that can happen to someone like me? No pack, no family, no rank, just a nobody getting thrown away by a king who doesn't know shit about what he just did. Darius's eyes narrowed. Careful. But here's the thing about breaking people, Lyra continued. Her hands were still chained, but she didn't feel bound. Sometimes when you break them, you don't get weakness. You get something else, something that doesn't know how to quit, something that remembers. Enough. The red-haired woman stepped forward. Take her to the border, now. Guards moved in, started dragging Lyra toward the northern gate. She didn't resist. But as they hauled her past Darius, she leaned in close enough that only he could hear. You're going to regret this, she whispered. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when you do, when you're on your knees begging me to come back, I'm going to smile just like I'm smiling now, and I'm going to walk away. His hand shot out, grabbed her jaw, forced her to look at him. You're nothing, he hissed. You will always be nothing, and if you ever come near my territory again, I will kill you myself. Lyra held his gaze. Looking forward to it, Your Majesty. He shoved her away. The guards dragged her through the gate, and just like that, Lyra Vane ceased to exist in the Northern Kingdom. Mouts. The wilderness didn't give a shit about her feelings. They dumped her at the border, literally dumped her, unchained her wrists and kicked her into the mud, and rode off without a backward glance. Lyra lay there for a minute, face in the dirt, tasting copper and earth. Then she pushed herself up, looked around, trees, rocks, mountains in the distance. No roads, no shelter, no supplies. Just her in a dress that was already torn to shreds and boots she didn't have because they hadn't given her any. Okay, Lyra said to nobody. Okay. She started walking. North would take her back to the kingdom. South led to unclaimed territories, rogue lands where pack law didn't reach. East was neutral ground, mostly human settlements. West was... She didn't actually know what was west. Mountains, probably. Death, definitely. South it was. Her feet were bleeding by the time she found the first stream. She'd been walking for hours, maybe longer. The sun had climbed high and was now starting to descend. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Her stomach growled with a hunger that went bone deep. Lyra dropped to her knees at the stream's edge, drank until her stomach cramped, washed the blood from her feet, stared at her reflection in the water, hollow eyes, bruised cheekbones, hair matted with God's knew what. She looked like a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead yet. Perfect, she muttered. A branch snapped behind her. Lyra spun, heart jumping into her throat. 3 wolves emerged from the tree line. Not shifted, still human-shaped, but clearly predators. 2 men, 1 woman. Ragged clothes, feral eyes, rogues. The taller man grinned, missing teeth. Well, well, what do we have here? Lyra stood slowly. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but running from predators just made you pray. Just passing through, she said. Passing through our territory? The woman circled left. That's rude. Didn't know it was yours. Ignorance ain't an excuse. The shorter man moved right, flanking her. You gotta pay the toll. Lyra's hands clenched. I don't have anything. Sure you do. The tall one's grin widened. You're breathing. That's something. They attacked simultaneously. Lyra moved on instinct, ducked under the first grab, twisted away from the second. But the woman was faster than she looked. Claws raked across Lyra's shoulder, tearing fabric and skin. Pain flared. Blood welled hot and wet. The tall one grabbed her hair, yanked her head back. Hold her still! Hands locked around her arms. Lyra thrashed, kicked, bit. Tasted blood that wasn't hers. Someone punched her in the ribs, and the air left her lungs in a rush. This was it. This was how she died. Not in some noble battle, not making a stand, just murdered by roadside scavengers in a forest nobody cared about. No! The thought came from somewhere deep, somewhere primal. No. Heat exploded in her chest. Not painful. Electric. Raw. The world sharpened into crystalline focus. She could feel their heartbeats, could smell their fear underneath the aggression, could sense the exact moment their grips would loosen. She moved. Her elbow slammed into the tall one's throat. He staggered back, gasping. She twisted, used the momentum to throw the woman over her hip. The shorter man lunged, but Lyra was already moving, was already inside his guard, and her fist connected with his solar plexus so hard something cracked. He went down. They all went down. Lyra stood in the center of 3 groaning bodies, breathing hard, her shoulder bleeding, her hands shaking. What the fuck just happened? She'd never fought like that, never moved like that. She wasn't trained, wasn't strong, wasn't anything except a nobody who'd been rejected 12 hours ago. But her knuckles were split and her attackers were on the ground and she was still standing. Stay down, she heard herself say. Her voice sounded different, harder. Or I put you down permanent. They stayed down. Lyra walked away before the shock wore off, before her body remembered it was supposed to be weak. Night fell like a hammer. Lyra found a hollow beneath an overhang of rock, curled up inside. Her shoulder throbbed where the rogue had clawed her, but when she peeled back the torn dress to look, the wounds were already closing. Not healed, but healing faster than they should. She should be dead. Should have died from the rejection. Should have died from exposure. Should have died from those rogues. But she wasn't dead, she was changing. Sleep took her eventually, dragging her down into dreams that felt more like memories. Stone circles, chanting, symbols carved into flesh. A woman's voice. They fear what they don't understand, little one, and they will never understand us. Darkness rising like a tide. Power that tasted like midnight and blood. Lyra woke, gasping. Dawn was breaking. Again. How many days had it been? 2? 3? Time was slipping away from her, sliding between her fingers like water. She crawled out of the hollow, stood on shaking legs. Her stomach was a knot of hunger, but the wounds on her shoulder were gone. Completely. Not even scars. Okay, Lyra said to the morning. What the fuck is happening to me? The forest didn't answer. She kept walking, south. Always south. Away from the kingdom that had thrown her away. Away from the bond that had broken. Away from everything except the strange new thing growing inside her chest. By midday, she reached a road. Actual cobblestones, worn smooth by travel. A sign pointed east. Millbrook, 12 miles. Civilization? Food? Answers, maybe. Lyra started walking faster. She reached Millbrook as the sun touched the horizon. Small town, mostly human. A few wolves mixed in, but the kind who'd integrated, shopkeepers, craftsmen, people who'd chosen peace over pack politics. Lyra walked down the main street with her head up and her bare feet silent on stone. People stared. Of course they stared. She looked like something that had crawled out of a grave. A tavern sat at the corner. The Silver Stag, the sign read. Light spilled from its windows. Laughter and music drifted out. Lyra pushed through the door. Conversation died. Every head turned. She walked to the bar. The bartender, older man, human, kind eyes, looked her up and down. You okay, miss? I need food, Lyra said, and information. I can work for both. Work? He raised an eyebrow. Doing what? Anything. A pause. Then the bartender nodded. Kitchen needs help. Cook will feed you. As for information, he leaned in. What kind you looking for? The kind about wolves who aren't wolves. His expression shuddered. Don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Lyra met his eyes. I can smell it on you. The fear. You know exactly what I mean. You've heard the stories. The bartender glanced around, lowered his voice. Listen, girl, I don't know what you think you're looking for, but some doors are better left closed. Some stories, I don't care about better. Lyra's voice was flat. Tell me about the obsidian wolves. The color drained from his face. How do you know that name? Doesn't matter. Tell me. He shook his head. Can't, won't. That's old magic, dark magic. That bloodline died out centuries ago and good riddance. If you're smart, you'll forget you ever heard, I can't forget. Lyra's hands pressed flat against the bar. Because I think I'm one of them. Silence. The bartender stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Then he reached under the bar, pulled out a key, slid it across to her. Room 3, upstairs. Lock the door. Don't come out until morning. What? Go. Now. Before someone hears you talking crazy and decides to do something stupid. Lyra took the key, climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor, found room 3, locked herself inside. The room was small, clean. A bed, a wash basin, a window overlooking the street. She collapsed onto the bed and didn't move for 12 hours. Someone was knocking. Lyra jolted awake, disoriented. Sunlight streamed through the window. Her body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. The knocking continued. Miss, you awake? She dragged herself to the door, opened it a crack. A young woman stood in the hallway, dark skin, warm smile, holding a tray of food that smelled like heaven. Bartholomew said you'd be hungry, the woman said. I'm Mira. I work here. Can I come in? Lyra stepped back. Let her enter. Mira set the tray on the small table. Bread, cheese, meat, fruit. Lyra's stomach clenched with need. Eat, Mira said gently. You look like you haven't had a decent meal in weeks. Lyra didn't argue. She tore into the food like an animal, barely tasting it, just needing the fuel. Mira watched quietly. Then, Bartholomew told me what you said last night, about the obsidian wolves. Lyra froze, bread halfway to her mouth. Don't worry, Mira continued. I'm not here to judge or hurt you. I'm here because, she hesitated, because my grandmother used to tell stories before she died, stories about the old bloodlines, the ones that got erased. Why were they erased? Because they were too powerful, because they didn't bow to alpha kings or moon goddesses or any authority except their own. Mira sat down across from her. The obsidian wolves could manipulate bonds, break them, forge them, command loyalty without pact structure. They were dangerous, Lyra finished. Necessary, Mira corrected. At least that's what my grandmother said. She said they kept the balance, made sure no one king got too strong. But the alphas hated that, hated not being the ultimate power. So they hunted the obsidian line, killed them, burned their histories, made them into monsters so no one would question it. Lyra set down the bread. Her appetite had vanished. And if someone survived, if the bloodline didn't die out, Mira's expression was serious. Then they'd be the most hunted wolf alive. Every pack would want them dead or controlled. Great, Lyra laughed, but it came out broken. That's just great. Why do you think you're one of them? Lyra showed her the shoulder where the rogues had clawed her. Smooth skin, no scars. That happened 3 days ago. Should have taken weeks to heal, and I fought off 3 attackers when I've never trained a day in my life. And the rejection, her voice cracked. The rejection should have destroyed me, but it didn't. It woke something up instead. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then, there's someone you should meet if you're serious about understanding what you are. Who? A witch. Lives in the southern marshes. She knew my grandmother, knows things about the old bloodlines that nobody else remembers. Mira stood. But I'm warning you, if you go down this path, there's no coming back. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. Lyra thought about Darius, about the red-haired woman, about the throne room full of wolves who'd watched her get broken and enjoyed it. I don't want to come back, she said. Mira nodded. Then rest today. Gather your strength. Tomorrow, I'll take you to her. The marshes smelled like rot and old secrets. Lyra followed Mira down paths that seemed to shift beneath their feet, through water that reflected nothing, past trees that grew in shapes that hurt to look at. Almost there, Mira called back. Where is there exactly? You'll know when we arrive. They did. The witch's home rose from the marsh like a monument to bad decisions. Crooked walls, thatched roof covered in moss, smoke drifting from a chimney that listed hard to port. A woman sat on the porch, old, ancient maybe. Her eyes were milky white, but somehow Lyra knew they could see just fine. Mira's granddaughter sends another lost thing, the witch said. Her voice sounded like gravel grinding. Come closer, child. Let me smell what you are. Lyra approached, stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. The witch inhaled deeply, then laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Oh, they made a mistake with you, she said. A beautiful, terrible mistake. What am I? Sit. This will take time. Lyra sat. Mira settled beside her. The witch lit a pipe, took a long pull, exhaled smoke that formed shapes in the air, wolves, circles, symbols Lyra didn't recognize. The obsidian bloodline, the witch began, was born from necessity. Long before the alphas, before the packs, there was chaos. Wolves killing wolves, no structure, no balance, just endless violence. The moon goddess, if you believe in such things, grew tired of it. So she created something to enforce order, something that could command without question, without bond, without choice. The obsidian wolves, Lyra said. Yes, but power like that, the witch's milky eyes fixed on her. Power like that doesn't come free. It demands sacrifice, blood, pain. Every obsidian wolf had to break before they could rise, had to lose everything before they could gain anything. Lyra's throat tightened. The rejection. Exactly. Your bond breaking wasn't weakness. It was activation. The trauma woke your blood, reminded it what it was supposed to be. The witch leaned forward. You're not broken, child. You're becoming. Becoming what? What you were always meant to be. A force that cannot be controlled. A wolf that kneels to no king. The witch smiled, showing teeth too sharp to be human. But the alphas won't see it that way. When they realize what you are, they'll come for you. All of them. Because you're a threat to everything they've built. Then I'll fight them. You'll lose. You're untrained, weak, one wolf against entire kingdoms. The witch sat back. Unless you learn, unless you embrace what you are, unless you stop running and start preparing. Lyra's hands clenched. How? The witch pointed south. 3 days' walk. There's a place, a sanctuary for wolves who don't fit anywhere else. Rogues, exiles, half-breeds. They won't ask questions, won't judge, and they'll teach you to fight, to survive, to become something those pretty alphas have nightmares about. And after? After you decide. Revenge, power, peace, whatever you want. Because once you're trained, once you're ready, the witch's smile widened. You'll be unstoppable. Lyra stood. Then that's where I'm going. Mira touched her arm. Lyra, are you sure? This life is the only one I have left. Lyra looked at her. Thank you for everything, but I can't stay here, can't hide. I know. Mira hugged her. Be safe. Lyra left the marsh as the sun set, walked south into darkness, into unknown territory, into whatever waited on the other side of becoming. Behind her, the witch watched. Poor king, she murmured to the night. He has no idea what he just created. Check. The sanctuary wasn't what Lyra expected. She'd imagined some hidden compound, walls, guards, structure. What she found was a valley tucked between mountains, filled with makeshift shelters and campfires and wolves who looked like they'd all been through their own personal hells. A man intercepted her at the entrance. Huge, scarred. One eye was missing, replaced by a leather patch. You lost? His voice could have stripped paint. Looking for sanctuary, Lyra said. Why? Because I don't belong anywhere else. He studied her, then grunted. Fair enough. Name's Cade. I run this place. Rules are simple. Don't start shit, don't steal, pull your weight. Break the rules, you leave. Permanently. Understand? Understood. Good. Find a spot. Get settled. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. He started to walk away, then paused. And girl, whatever you're running from, it don't matter here. Only thing that matters is what you're running toward. Lyra found a space near the edge of the valley, set up a bedroll someone donated, sat by a fire with strangers who didn't ask her story. That night, she dreamed of blood moons and broken bonds, of kings who would regret, of queens who weren't born. They were forged. Each. Dawn came with someone kicking her awake. Up now! Lyra jolted upright. A woman stood over her, lean, muscled, with a face that had forgotten how to smile. Training, the woman said. You're late. I didn't know. Ignorance ain't an excuse. Move. Lyra scrambled to her feet, followed the woman to a clearing where 24 wolves were already assembled. All shapes, all sizes, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Cade stood at the front. Listen up. Most of you are here because you fucked up somewhere, got exiled, got rejected, got hunted. Don't care. What I care about is making sure when you leave here, you're dangerous enough that nobody fucks with you again. He pointed at Lyra. New girl, step forward. Lyra's heart hammered, but she walked to the front. Name? Lyra. Well, Lyra, let's see what you got. Marcus? He gestured to a wolf twice her size. Spar with her. Marcus grinned. This'll be quick. They circled each other. Lyra's mind raced. She'd fought the rogues on instinct, but that was survival. This was different. Controlled. Witnessed. Marcus lunged. Lyra dodged. Barely. His fist grazed her cheek. She stumbled. He pressed the advantage, came at her hard and fast. She went down, hit the dirt, tasted blood. Marcus stood over her. Stay down. And something inside Lyra said, no. She swept his legs. He crashed down beside her. She was on him in a heartbeat, fist driving toward his face. Cade caught her wrist. Enough! Lyra froze. Marcus groaned. Cade pulled her up, looked her in the eyes. You got fire. Good. We'll forge it into something useful. He released her. Welcome to hell, Lyra. Try not to die. Training was brutal. They ran until muscles screamed, fought until bones ached, learned to kill in 100 different ways. Lyra broke. Every day, she broke. And every night, she rebuilt herself harder. Weeks blurred into months. Winter came, painting the valley white. Lyra's body changed, leaner, stronger, covered in scars that healed faster than they should. And the power inside her grew. She could feel it now. Feel the way wolves responded to her presence. Feel the bonds between pack members, like threads she could pluck. Feel the dominance that radiated from alphas and understand instinctively how to counter it. Cade noticed. One night he found her sitting alone by the fire. You're different, he said. Lyra didn't look up. Everyone here is different. Not like you. I've seen a lot of wolves, trained hundreds. But you, he sat down. There's something else in you, something old. Does it matter? Might, depending on what you plan to do with it. Lyra finally met his eye. I plan to make sure the people who threw me away remember my name. Cade smiled. First time she'd seen him do it. Then you're in the right place. 6 months after she arrived, Lyra left. Not because she was ready, she'd never be fully ready, but because staying would make her comfortable. And comfortable wolves didn't survive what she had planned. Cade walked her to the valley's edge. You sure about this? He asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Fair. He handed her a pack, supplies, weapons. Where are you headed? North? His eyebrow rose. The territories? Eventually, Lyra adjusted the pack. Got some things to take care of first. The king? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Cade gripped her shoulder. Listen, whatever you're planning, be smart. Don't let revenge make you stupid. It's not revenge. Lyra looked at him. It's reckoning. She walked away without looking back. The journey north took weeks. Lyra moved through rogue territories, avoiding packs, hunting for food, sleeping rough. The girl who'd been thrown across the border in a torn dress was gone. In her place walked something forged in pain and tempered by purpose. She reached the neutral zone between territories, the no man's land where borders got fuzzy and pack law didn't quite reach. And that's where she started. Small things at first. A rogue pack terrorizing a village? Lyra dealt with them. An alpha abusing his authority. She made sure everyone knew about it. Wolves who thought they were untouchable? She proved them wrong. Word spread. Whispers at first, then rumors, then stories. A woman in black. Moves like smoke. Fights like death. Doesn't belong to any pack, but doesn't bow to any alpha either. They started calling her the Shadow. Lyra didn't correct them. By the time she actually set foot in the Northern Territories again, her name had already arrived. Nice. The first border town fell to her without a fight. Lyra walked in at noon. The guards saw her coming, saw the way she moved, the way shadows seemed to cling to her, and stepped aside. Inside, she found the local alpha holding court in a tavern. Fat, lazy, drunk on his own minor authority. "Who the fuck are you?" he demanded when she walked in. Lyra didn't answer, just walked up to his table, met his eyes. "Leave," she said quietly. "What?" "Leave this town, leave this territory, go somewhere far away and never come back." He laughed, stood, towered over her. "Do you know who I am? I run." She moved. 1 second he was standing, the next he was on his knees with her hand around his throat and darkness coiling in the air like living smoke. "I know exactly who you are," Lyra whispered. "A small alpha in a small town who thinks power means something. It doesn't. Not anymore. So I'm going to give you a choice. Leave now, or I make you leave. Permanently." She released him. He scrambled backward, stared at her with wide, terrified eyes. Then he ran. The wolves in the tavern stared. "Anyone else want to test me?" Lyra asked. Silence. She walked out. Town after town, village after village. Lyra moved through the Northern Territories like a scythe through wheat, removing the worst alphas, the cruelest pack leaders, the ones who ruled through fear instead of strength. And always, always she left the same message. The shadow is coming. By the time Darius heard about it, half his outer territories were in chaos. He called an emergency council. Lyra heard about it from a scout 3 days later. "The king's gathering his alphas," the scout reported. Nervous kid, couldn't have been more than 19. "Says he's going to hunt down whoever's causing trouble. Says," the kid swallowed, "says he's going to make an example." Lyra smiled. "Good. Tell him I'll be waiting." "Where?" "He'll know." She sent the kid away, turned to the small group of wolves who'd started following her, outcasts, exiles, rogues who'd found purpose in her wake. "How many alphas will he bring?" one asked. "All of them," Lyra said. "He'll want a show of force, want to remind everyone he's still the king." "Can you handle all of them?" "I don't have to handle all of them." She looked at her followers. "I just have to handle him." They made camp that night in the ruins of an old ceremonial ground, the same place, actually, where Darius had rejected her. Lyra stood in the center of the stone circle and felt the power thrumming beneath her feet. Old magic, obsidian magic, the kind that predated pack bonds and moon goddesses. Tomorrow, Darius would come, and he would learn what a mistake actually looked like. Lyra closed her eyes, felt the shadows gather, felt the power rise, and smiled. Because the girl he'd rejected was dead. But what rose from her ashes? That was something kings had nightmares about. The silence before violence always felt the same. Lyra could taste it, metallic and sharp, like copper pennies dissolving on her tongue. 50 alphas stood in formation behind Darius, their dominance rolling across the ceremonial ground in waves that would have brought weaker wolves to their knees. Should have brought her to her knees. She stood straighter instead. Darius stepped forward. His armor caught the early light, black steel etched with northern runes designed to intimidate. It worked on most people. Most people hadn't spent 6 months learning that intimidation was just fear wearing expensive clothes. "Lyra Vane!" His voice carried across the distance between them. Controlled. Measured. But she heard the edge underneath, the slight rasp that meant he was keeping something caged. "You were exiled. The penalty for return is death." "I remember." Lyra didn't move from the circle's center. "You said you'd kill me yourself. Here I am." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. One of the alphas, older man, graybeard, eastern pack markings, leaned toward Darius. "Your Majesty, she's alone. Let me handle—" "No!" Darius raised a hand. His eyes never left Lyra. "She came here for me. She gets me." "How romantic." Lyra tilted her head. The movement was casual, but calculated. Everything about her now was calculated. 6 months of Cade's training had taught her that survival was 90% psychology, 10% violence. "You remember what I told you before your guards dragged me away? You talk too much. I said you'd regret this, that you'd be on your knees, that you'd beg me to come back. She smiled. I was wrong about one thing, though. What's that? You won't beg, because I'm not giving you the chance. Darius moved, fast, alpha fast, the kind of speed that came from centuries of breeding the strongest to the strongest. He crossed 30 yards in heartbeats, drawing his blade mid-stride, a killing blow aimed at her throat. Lyra sidestepped. His sword cut air where her neck had been. She was already inside his guard, already turning, already bringing her knee up toward his ribs. He blocked with his forearm. The impact jarred both of them. They separated, circled. You learned to fight. Darius's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in his gray eyes. Surprise, maybe, or the first whisper of doubt. I learned a lot of things. It won't be enough. He attacked again, this time with purpose, with technique refined over decades. Lyra met him strike for strike. Her blade, a simple hunting knife she'd taken from a rogue alpha 3 weeks ago, rang against his sword. Sparks flew. The clang of steel echoed across stone. They moved like a storm contained in skin. Brutal, precise, neither giving ground. Until Lyra felt it. The power beneath her feet. The old magic in the stones. The ceremonial circle responding to her presence, to her blood, to what she'd become in the months since rejection. She stopped defending, started attacking. Her knife found gaps in his armor, not deep cuts, just enough to draw blood. His shoulder, his thigh, his ribs. Darius snarled, pressed harder, but she was already adapting to his rhythm, already anticipating his strikes. You can't beat me, he growled. I'm a king. You're... What? Lyra caught his blade with her knife, twisted, sent his sword spinning. Nothing? Is that what you were going to say? She kicked him in the chest. He staggered back, hit the ground, rolled to his feet immediately, but she was already there, knife at his throat, her other hand fisted in his hair. The assembled wolves erupted into chaos, shouts, weapons drawn, alphas surging forward. Stop! Lyra's voice cut through the noise. Didn't sound like her voice. Too deep, too resonant, touched with something that made every wolf present freeze mid-stride. One more step and your king bleeds out on sacred ground. They stopped. Darius stared up at her. Blood trickled from the shallow cuts on his face. You won't kill me. Won't I? You're not a killer. Lyra pressed the knife harder against his throat. Not enough to break skin, just enough to make her point. You have no idea what I am anymore. Then do it. His eyes locked on hers. Challenging, defiant. Prove you're not just playing at power. Kill me. Take my throne. Become the tyrant you think I am. Her hand trembled. Not from weakness, from rage. From the memory of standing in this exact spot 6 months ago while he severed their bond and called her nothing. From every mile she'd walked bleeding and broken. From every night she'd rebuilt herself from pieces he'd shattered. Lyra, a voice from the crowd. Female. Familiar. Lyra's gaze flicked sideways. The red-haired woman from the exile stood at the front of the assembled alphas. She looked different in daylight, harder, more dangerous. She wore armor too, but lighter, built for speed. I remember you, Lyra said. I'm sure you do. I'm Cassandra. His second. The woman's smile was sharp as broken glass. And before you get too comfortable holding a knife to his throat, you should know. Kill him, and every wolf here tears you apart. You might be fast, might be trained, but you're still 1 against 50. 49, Lyra corrected. I killed one of your border alphas last week. Marcus Greer. He didn't go quietly. Shocked silence. You're lying, someone said. Am I? Check his territory. See what you find. Lyra's attention returned to Darius. I've been busy, taking apart your kingdom piece by piece, removing the rot, making space for something better. You're a terrorist, Darius said. I'm a correction. She released him, stepped back, lowered her knife. Darius stood slowly, wiped blood from his cheek. Why? Why what? Why not kill me? You had the chance. You wanted revenge. I don't want revenge. Lyra sheathed her knife. I want you to understand what you did, what you rejected, what you could have had if you weren't so goddamn arrogant. I rejected weakness. You rejected power you couldn't control. There's a difference. She gestured at the assembled alphas. All of this? This display of force? It's fear. You're afraid of what I represent. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, your precious hierarchy is built on lies. You're insane. Am I? Lyra's voice dropped. Then why are your hands shaking? Darius looked down. His hands were trembling. Barely, but they were. He clenched them into fists. I gave you mercy once. Exile instead of execution. I won't make that mistake again. Good, Lyra smiled, because I'm done running. She turned her back on him, walked toward the assembled alphas. They parted like water, creating a path. No one touched her. No one dared. Cassandra didn't move, stood directly in Lyra's path, blocking the exit. Problem? Lyra asked. You just assaulted our king, admitted to murdering a pack alpha, threatened our entire authority structure. Cassandra's hand rested on her sword hilt. And you think you're just walking away? I think you're going to let me, because if you don't, I'll show everyone here what your king is too proud to admit. Which is? Lyra leaned in close, whispered so only Cassandra could hear, that I'm stronger than him. Cassandra's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment, they stood inches apart, two predators measuring each other, testing. Then Cassandra stepped aside. This isn't over, she said. I'm counting on it. Lyra walked past her, past the assembled alphas, past the borders of the ceremonial ground. She was 20 feet away when Darius's voice rang out. Lyra? She stopped, didn't turn around. You want to dismantle my kingdom? Fine, but do it properly. Challenge me. Tomorrow night, full moon, rite of combat. His words carried across the clearing. You win, you take the throne. I win, you die. No running, no hiding, just you and me and whoever's stronger. Lyra turned slowly. You're serious. Completely. Why? Because you're right, this ends tomorrow, one way or another. Darius's expression was unreadable. Unless you're afraid? Lyra laughed. The sound echoed off stone, harsh and genuine. I'll be there. She left before he could respond. The walk back to her camp took 3 hours. Lyra's followers, 7 wolves now, all exiles and rogues she'd collected, were waiting in a clearing 5 miles south. They looked up when she approached, reading her expression. Well? The first to speak was Nyx, a young female who'd been rejected by her pack for being too aggressive. How'd it go? I challenged the king to single combat. Stunned silence. You what? That was Garrett, older male, scarred from a dozen territorial wars. Lyra, that's suicide. Darius has been fighting for 30 years. He's trained since birth. You've had 6 months. I know the math. Then why? Because he needs to understand. Lyra sat down by the fire. Her hands were steady now, but her mind was racing. Understand that power isn't about birthright or time served. It's about what you become when everything's taken from you. Nyx crouched beside her. Can you beat him? Lyra met her eyes. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. That's not reassuring. It's honest. Lyra stared into the flames. But here's the thing about fighting someone who has everything to lose. They fight scared. And scared fighters make mistakes. And you? Garrett asked. What do you have to lose? Nothing. I already lost everything. She looked up at him. That makes me dangerous. They talked strategy for hours. Examined Darius's fighting style from the brief encounter. Discussed weaknesses. His reliance on brute strength. His predictable patterns when angry. The way he telegraphed his attacks. But underneath the planning, Lyra felt something else. Doubt. Not about fighting him. About what came after. If she won, actually won, she'd become what? A queen? A ruler? The very thing she'd spent months dismantling? The thought sat in her stomach like lead. She stood abruptly. I need air. Walked away before anyone could follow. The forest at night was different than the forest at day. Shadows moved wrong. Sounds carried strangely. Lyra found a fallen log and sat, letting the darkness settle around her like a familiar coat. You're troubled. Lyra spun. An old woman emerged from the trees. No, not emerged. She'd been there the whole time. Lyra just hadn't noticed. The witch from the marshes. How did you find me? Lyra asked. I didn't. You found me. Or this place did. Or fate did. Does it matter? The witch settled onto the log beside her. Tomorrow, you fight a king. News travels fast. News about you always does. The shadow, the reckoning, the rejected mate who became. The witch pulled out her pipe. They're making stories about you already. Songs, legends. I don't want legends. What do you want? Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then, I want it to mean something. All of this, the pain, the training, the fighting, I want it to mean something beyond just revenge. And does it? I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm just angry, that I'm tearing down his kingdom because I'm too broken to build anything else. The witch lit her pipe, exhaled smoke that formed shapes, wolves hunting, circles turning, power rising. Let me tell you something about broken things, child. When pottery breaks and you repair it with gold, it becomes more valuable, more beautiful. The Japanese have a word for it, kintsugi, the art of precious scars. I'm not pottery. No, you're something far more dangerous. You're a person who learned that breaking doesn't mean ending. The witch looked at her with those milky eyes that saw too much. Tomorrow, when you face him, remember, he's fighting to keep what he has. You're fighting to become what you are. Those are very different battles. And if I lose, then you lose. Death comes for everyone eventually. The question isn't if you die. It's what you stood for when death arrived. She stood, bones creaking. Get some sleep, child. Tomorrow you make history, one way or another. The witch dissolved back into shadows. Lyra sat alone with her thoughts until dawn. Go. The day of the challenge crawled by like a wounded animal. Lyra spent the morning preparing, sharpening weapons, checking armor, light leather, nothing that would slow her down. Going through forms Cade had drilled into her until they were muscle memory. Her followers watched in silence. They knew better than to offer hollow encouragement. Noon came, then afternoon, then the long slide into evening. As the sun touched the horizon, Lyra stood. It's time. They walked together to the ceremonial grounds. Word had spread. Hundreds of wolves lined the path. Some jeered, some cheered. Most just watched with the hungry anticipation of predators sensing blood. The ceremonial circle was packed. More alphas than before, visiting dignitaries from distant packs. Even some humans, merchants and nobles who had dealings with the Northern Kingdom and wanted to see what happened when their contracts might change hands. In the center of the circle stood Darius. He'd removed his armor, wore simple leather pants and nothing else. His chest was a roadmap of scars, old battles, old victories. He looked like exactly what he was, a king who'd fought for everything and wasn't planning to stop. Lyra entered the circle, stripped off her outer layers until she matched his state of dress. The crowd murmured at the scars on her own skin, fresher, rawer, earned in months instead of decades. An arbiter stepped forward, the same priest who'd presided over her rejection. He looked older now, tired. This is a challenge of right, he announced. Combat to submission or death. The winner claims all, the loser claims nothing. Do both parties consent? Yes, Darius said. Yes, Lyra echoed. Then when the moon rises full above this circle, the challenge begins. May the strongest wolf— Save it, Lyra interrupted. We know the speech. The priest's mouth thinned, but he stepped back. Lyra and Darius faced each other across 10 feet of stone. The crowd noise faded to background static. The world narrowed to this moment, this place, this reckoning. Last chance to run, Darius said quietly. I don't run. Not anymore. Then you'll die. Maybe, but I'll die free. Can you say the same? His jaw clenched. What's that supposed to mean? You're a slave to this. Lyra gestured at the assembled wolves. To their expectations, their hierarchies, their fear. You can't make a single choice without calculating how it affects your throne. That's not freedom. That's a cage made of duty. And what are you slave to? Revenge? Anger? Purpose. The word came out fierce, certain. I'm slave to becoming something that matters, something real, not a title, not a bloodline, just me. Fully realized, fully alive. Darius stared at her. For a moment something crossed his face, not quite understanding, but close. Recognition, maybe, of a truth he'd spent 30 years avoiding. Then the moon crested the eastern ridge, full, silver, merciless. The priest's voice rang out, "Let the challenge begin." Darius attacked immediately. No hesitation, no warning. His fist drove toward her face with enough force to shatter bone. Lyra slipped left. His knuckles grazed her cheek. She countered with an elbow to his ribs, connected. Felt something give slightly. He grunted, pivoted, swept her legs. She went down but rolled immediately, came up with her knife in hand. He had his sword. They circled. The crowd roared, but Lyra couldn't hear them anymore. Couldn't hear anything except her own breathing, her own heartbeat, the whisper of steel through air. Darius lunged, she parried, their blades locked. They stood nose to nose, straining against each other. "You can't win," he hissed. "Watch me." She headbutted him. His nose crunched. Blood sprayed. He staggered back and she pressed the advantage. 3 quick strikes, each one aimed at vital points Kate had shown her. Throat. Solar plexus. Kidney. Darius blocked 2. The third connected. He went to one knee. The crowd went insane. Lyra didn't hear them, was already moving, already bringing her knife down toward his exposed neck. He caught her wrist. Twisted. Her knife flew from nerveless fingers. His other hand grabbed her throat, and suddenly she was airborne, thrown 6 feet, hitting stone hard enough to crack ribs. Pain exploded through her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Darius stood, wiped blood from his face, walked toward her with sword raised. "I told you," he said. "You're not strong enough." Lyra's vision blurred. The pain in her ribs was blinding, but underneath the pain, underneath the fear, something else stirred. The power. The obsidian blood. The thing that had woken when he rejected her. She felt it rise like a tide, cold, vast, absolute. Felt it spread through her veins like liquid midnight. Felt the ceremonial stones respond, ancient magic recognizing ancient blood. Her eyes snapped open. They were black, completely black. No iris. No white. Just endless dark. Darius froze mid-stride. "What?" Lyra stood. Her ribs were still broken, but she didn't feel them anymore. Didn't feel anything except the power coursing through her. "You wanted to see what I am?" Her voice had changed, layered, like multiple people speaking at once. "Here it is." Shadows erupted from the ground around her. Not metaphorical, actual darkness, thick and writhing like living things. They coiled up her legs, wrapped around her arms, formed a cloak that billowed without wind. The crowd screamed, wolves scattered, even the alphas backed away. Only Darius stood his ground, but his sword was shaking. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No, this is what you rejected. This is what you were too afraid to accept." Lyra moved. Not running, flowing. The shadows carried her across the distance between them faster than thought. Her hand, wrapped in living darkness, caught his sword. The steel shattered. Darius swung with his bare fist. She caught that too, held him immobile with strength that shouldn't exist. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "Do you see what you threw away?" He didn't answer. Couldn't. Terror had stolen his voice. Lyra released him. The shadows retreated slightly but didn't disappear. "I could kill you," she said. "Right now, in front of everyone. Prove that I'm stronger, that I won. Then do it." "No." "Why?" "Because that's not what this is about. It never was." Lyra stepped back. The darkness around her pulsed like a heartbeat. "I don't want your throne, Darius. I don't want your kingdom. I don't want to be you." "Then what do you want?" Lyra looked around at the assembled wolves, hundreds of them, all staring with fear and awe and something else. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. "I want them to see that there's another way. That power doesn't have to come from domination. That strength can exist without submission." She turned back to him. "You built this kingdom on fear, on hierarchy, on the belief that some wolves are born to rule and others are born to serve. But that's a lie, and I'm living proof. You're an aberration." "No, I'm evolution." Lyra felt the power start to recede. It hurt, like pulling off her own skin, but she forced it down, locked it away, returned to herself. Her eyes cleared, brown again, human again. The shadows vanished. She stood before him just a woman, just Lyra. Broken ribs screaming, body exhausted, but still standing. "I forfeit," she said. Chaos exploded. Wolves shouting, alphas demanding explanations, the priest looking like he'd swallowed his tongue. Darius stared at her. "What are you doing?" "Winning. Just not the way you expected." Lyra smiled despite the pain. "I proved I could beat you. Everyone saw it. But I'm not taking your throne because I don't need it. I already have what I came for." Which is proof that I'm not nothing, that I never was, that you were wrong. She turned to face the crowd, raised her voice. "I was rejected 6 months ago in this circle. Called weak, called worthless, called a mistake. And maybe by your laws, your hierarchies, your precious order, I was. But I survived. I trained. I became. And now I stand here stronger than your king, and I choose to walk away, not because I'm afraid, but because true power doesn't need a throne." Silence. Then, from the back of the crowd, someone started clapping. A wolf, young male, Eastern pack markings. Another joined him, then another. The applause spread like wildfire. Not everyone. The older alphas looked furious, but the younger wolves, the fighters, the ones who'd lived under the weight of hierarchy their whole lives, they understood. Cassandra pushed through the crowd, stood between Lyra and Darius. Her expression was unreadable. "You just made things very complicated," she said. "I specialize in complicated." "Where will you go?" "South, back to the sanctuary. Help train others like me. Build something new." Lyra glanced at Darius. He still hadn't moved. "Unless your king plans to stop me." All eyes turned to Darius. He looked at her for a long moment, then at his kingdom, then back to her. "Go," he said quietly. "Before I change my mind." Lyra nodded, started to walk away. "Lyra." She stopped. Didn't turn around. "I was wrong," Darius said. "About you. About what you were. What you are. I know. Will you ever forgive me?" Lyra looked back over her shoulder, met his eyes one last time. "No, but I'll remember you, and that's worse." She walked through the crowd. They parted for her, some with respect, some with fear, all with recognition. Her followers joined her at the circle's edge. Together, they disappeared into the night. Behind them, the northern kingdom began to fracture. Not immediately, not obviously, but like a crack in ice, spreading slowly, inevitably. Because Lyra had done something worse than kill their king. She'd shown them he could be beaten. And some wolves, once they saw a possibility, could never unsee it. They were 2 miles south when Nick spoke. "That was insane." "Yeah. You could have been queen, I know." "Then why?" "Because queens sit on thrones." Lyra kept walking. "I'd rather build my own kingdom. One where nobody gets rejected for being different, where power means protecting instead of dominating." Garrett laughed. "You're talking about revolution." "I'm talking about evolution. Let them keep their thrones, their territories, their precious hierarchies." Lyra looked up at the moon, still full, still silver, still watching. "We'll build something better in the spaces they don't control." "With what army?" Nyx asked. "With every rejected wolf, every exile, every rogue who's tired of bowing to kings who don't deserve it." Lyra smiled. "We won't need an army. We'll be a movement." They walked in silence for a while. The night settled around them, cool, vast, full of possibility. Behind them, in the northern kingdom, Darius stood alone in the ceremonial circle. Cassandra approached carefully. "Your Majesty?" "She beat me," he said, "in front of everyone. Technically, she forfeited. She beat me and chose to walk away. That's worse." He looked at his second. "What does that make me?" "Still a king, still powerful, still afraid." Darius laughed bitterly. "She saw right through me, through all of this, and she pitied me enough to let me keep it." "What do you want to do?" Darius was quiet for a long time. Then, "Call the council, tomorrow. We need to talk about changes." "What kind of changes?" "The kind that makes sure we never create another Lyra Vane." He turned to face her. Because next time, they might not walk away. Cassandra nodded, started to leave, paused. For what it's worth, I think she was right. About what? That you rejected power you couldn't control. Cassandra met his eyes. Question is, what are you going to do about it? She left him there, alone with his thoughts, alone with his choices, alone with the realization that sometimes winning meant losing everything you thought you wanted. 3 days later, Lyra's group reached the sanctuary. Cade met them at the entrance, looked at Lyra, looked at the way she moved, different now, heavier with purpose. Heard you challenged a king, he said. I did. Heard you won. I did. Heard you walked away. Lyra smiled. That too. Cade nodded slowly. Welcome home. But as Lyra entered the valley, as she looked around at the makeshift shelters and training grounds and wolves who'd found refuge here, she realized something. This wasn't home. Home was what she was going to build. Something permanent, something real, something that would outlast kings and kingdoms and the hierarchies that created rejects in the first place. She turned to her followers, gather everyone. We need to talk about the future. That night, around a central fire, Lyra outlined her vision. A network of sanctuaries across all territories. Training grounds for rejected wolves. Safe havens for those who didn't fit pack structure. Not a rebellion, an alternative. Not everyone agreed. Some wanted war, some wanted revenge. Some just wanted to be left alone. But enough listened. Enough believed. Enough saw in Lyra something they'd lost. Hope that being different didn't mean being worthless. Over the following weeks, the movement grew. Word spread. Rejected mates arrived. Exiled fighters. Omega wolves tired of hierarchy. Half-breeds caught between worlds. They came from all territories, all packs, all backgrounds. And Lyra trained them. Not to overthrow, not to destroy, but to survive. To thrive. To become dangerous enough that packs would think twice before casting anyone out. 3 months after the challenge, the first delegation arrived from the Northern Kingdom. Not Darius. Cassandra. She found Lyra overseeing combat training in the main clearing, watched for a while before speaking. It's impressive, Cassandra said, what you're building here. Lyra didn't stop coaching her student. Why are you here? Darius sent me. He wants to talk. About? An alliance, or at least an understanding. That got Lyra's attention. She called a break, turned to face Cassandra fully. What kind of understanding? The kind where he acknowledges that forcing rejected wolves into the wilderness just creates enemies. Cassandra gestured around the sanctuary. You've proven there's another way. He wants to formalize it, recognize these sanctuaries as neutral ground, maybe even fund them. In exchange for what? Peace, cooperation, a promise you won't actively work to dismantle pack structure. Lyra considered. I'll think about it. He also wants to see you, personally. Why? Cassandra smiled slightly. I think he wants to apologize, properly this time. Tell him no. Tell him, Lyra interrupted gently, that I don't need his apology. I needed his respect, and I already took that. She met Cassandra's eyes. But I'll consider the alliance, for the sake of the wolves here. Not for him. Cassandra nodded. I'll relay the message. She left at dawn. Lyra stood at the valley's edge, watching the sun rise, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Settled. Not happy. Happiness was too simple for what she'd been through, but complete. Like all the broken pieces had finally found a configuration that worked. Nyx joined her. You okay? Yeah, I think I actually am. What happens now? Lyra smiled. Now we keep building. Keep training. Keep proving that there's more than one way to be a wolf. She turned to face her friend. And eventually, when the old kings die and the new generation rises, they'll remember us. Remember that strength comes in forms they never expected. That's a long game. I'm patient, and I'm not going anywhere. They stood together watching the sanctuary wake, wolves training, laughing, building lives in the spaces between kingdoms. And Lyra knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd made the right choice. Not revenge, not a throne, but something better, something that would last. Far to the north, in a throne room carved from mountain stone, Darius sat alone. He held something in his hands, a small wooden token, carved with symbols of fate and bond and rejection. The priest had given it to him years ago, said to keep it until he found his true mate. He'd rejected that mate, severed that bond, called her nothing. And now she was building kingdoms in the wilderness while he sat on a throne that felt emptier every day. "Your Majesty?" A servant's voice from the doorway. "The council is assembled." Darius stood, pocketed the token, walked toward the council chamber where 50 alphas waited to hear about changes he was implementing. Changes inspired by a woman he'd thrown away. Irony tasted like ashes. But as he entered the chamber, as he began explaining new policies for rejected wolves and sanctuary recognitions and alternative pack structures, he felt something unexpected. Relief. Because pretending to be infallible was exhausting. And maybe, just maybe, admitting he'd been wrong was the first step toward being the king his kingdom actually needed. Not the one his father had been. Not the one tradition demanded. But something new. Something evolved. The meeting lasted hours. Some alphas resisted. Others embraced the changes. Most just looked confused. When it finally ended, when the last alpha had left and Cassandra was gathering papers, Darius spoke. "Did she really say she didn't need my apology?" Cassandra looked up. "She did." "Of course she did." He laughed softly. "She never needed anything from me. That was the whole point." "Are you okay, Darius?" He considered the question, really considered it. "No," he said finally, "but I will be, eventually." He met his second's eyes. "Make sure those sanctuary recognitions get formalized, and double the proposed funding." "That's more than "I know, do it anyway." He headed for the door, paused. She was right about something else too. "What?" "This throne is a cage, but maybe—" He looked back at the empty room. "Maybe it doesn't have to be." He left Cassandra there. Went to his private chambers, stood at the window overlooking his kingdom, vast, powerful, built on hierarchies that suddenly felt fragile, and wondered what it would have been like if he'd said yes instead of no, if he'd accepted instead of rejected, if he'd been brave enough to see power for what it was instead of what he feared it might be. But some questions don't get answers, some choices don't get second chances. All you can do is live with what you decided, and try to be better tomorrow than you were today. Darius pulled the wooden token from his pocket, looked at it one last time, then threw it in the fire, watched it burn, and turned to face whatever came next. Unknown to both Lyra and Darius in the Eastern Territories, something was stirring. Old enemies, old grudges, old bloodlines that remembered the Obsidian wolves and wanted them extinct. Lord Malachi Thorne had waited 3 centuries for this moment. He stood in a chamber carved from black stone, deep beneath the eastern capital, surrounded by texts that predated pack law. His fingers traced symbols etched into ancient leather, binding rituals, blood magic, ways to trap power that shouldn't exist. "Are you certain it's her?" His voice scraped like metal on bone. The scout before him trembled. Young wolf, terrified. "Yes, my lord, the descriptions match. Black eyes, shadow manipulation. She even calls herself I know what she calls herself." Malachi turned from the texts. His own eyes were pale, almost colorless. Centuries of dark magic had bleached them to nothing. "And you're sure she's established this sanctuary?" "Multiple locations now. The largest is in the southern unclaimed territories. She's training rejected wolves, building an army. Not an army, a bloodline." Malachi smiled without warmth. "She doesn't know what she is yet. Doesn't understand the full scope of Obsidian power. Good. That gives us time." "Time for what, my lord?" "To do what should have been done 300 years ago, to finish the purge, to ensure no Obsidian wolf ever threatens the natural order again." He gestured dismissively. "Go. Continue monitoring her movements. Report everything." The scout fled. Malachi returned to his texts, ran his fingers over a particular passage, a ritual of severance designed to rip Obsidian power from its host. It required 3 things: the wolf's true name, their blood, and someone they trusted. He had the first. The second would be easy enough to obtain. The third? Malachi pulled out a communication crystal, spoke a name into it. Miles away, in Lyra's sanctuary, someone's pocket began to glow. Cheats. 2 months had passed since Cassandra's visit. The alliance with the Northern Kingdom was formalized. Funding arrived. Not enough to make them dependent, but enough to expand operations. 3 new sanctuary locations were established. Training programs grew more sophisticated. Rejected wolves arrived daily. Lyra stood in the main clearing watching Nyx run combat drills with a group of newcomers. The girl had natural leadership, fierce, precise, uncompromising. She'd make a good commander when the time came. "You look proud," Garrett's voice from behind her. Lyra didn't turn. "I am. Look at them. 2 months ago, half these wolves were starving in ditches. Now they're fighters. You gave them that. I gave them a chance. They did the rest." She finally looked at him. "How's the Eastern expansion going?" Garrett's expression darkened. "Slow. The Eastern lords are resistant, more than the Northern Kingdom ever was. They're blocking refugees from reaching us, spreading rumors that we're building an army to overthrow pack law." "We are building an army, just not for overthrow. Try explaining that to wolves who've spent centuries hoarding power." He pulled out a map. "There's one lord in particular, Malachi Thorne, ancient bloodline. Controls most of the eastern trade routes. He's been the most vocal opponent. Started calling you a heretic, a threat to wolfkind." Lyra studied the map. Eastern territories were marked in red. Hostile zones. "What do we know about him?" "Not much. He's old. Older than any living alpha. Rumor is he dabbles in dark magic, blood rituals, forbidden practices." "Lovely. There's more." Garrett hesitated. "He's been sending envoys to the other territories, building a coalition. Claims you're the return of the Obsidian Plague, that if we don't stop you now, you'll enslave every pack under shadow magic." Lyra's jaw tightened. "That's insane. I'm not enslaving anyone." "He's convincing, though. 3 southern packs have already pledged support. The western clans are considering it." "What about Darius?" "Northern Kingdom's staying neutral. For now. But if enough territories unite against us..." Garrett didn't need to finish. Lyra folded the map. "Then we move faster, establish more sanctuaries, show the world we're not a threat. Or we could strike first, take out Malachi before he rallies everyone." "No." Lyra's voice was firm. "We're not assassins. We don't solve problems by killing people who disagree with us. That makes us exactly what they fear." Garrett nodded, but didn't look convinced. A commotion near the valley entrance drew their attention. Guards escorting someone in. A woman, bedraggled, bleeding from a wound on her shoulder. Lyra ran toward them. "What happened?" "Found her at the border," one guard said. "She was asking for you specifically." The woman looked up. Eastern features, terrified eyes. "Please, you have to help. They're coming." Lyra crouched beside her. "Who's coming?" "Malachi's hunters. They raided our sanctuary, the one we were building in the eastern foothills. They killed everyone. Everyone except..." Her voice broke. "They let me go. Said to give you a message." "What message?" The woman pulled something from her pocket, a small wooden box, handed it to Lyra with shaking fingers. Lyra opened it. Inside was a finger, fresh, still bleeding slightly, and a ring she recognized, one of the wolves she'd sent east to establish the new location. Underneath, a note in elegant script. "Return what you stole, or more will die. You have 3 days. Come to the Black Spire alone. MT." Rage flooded through Lyra so fast she saw red. The box crumpled in her grip. "How many dead?" 17. All of them. They didn't even fight back properly. Malachi's hunters are..." The woman swallowed. "They're not normal wolves. They move wrong. Smell wrong. Like death and old magic." Lyra stood. Every muscle in her body screamed to run east, to rip Malachi apart, to make him understand what happened when you murdered her people. But that's exactly what he wanted. She took a breath, forced the rage down, locked it behind the same walls she'd built to contain her power. "Get her to medical," Lyra told the guards. Then to Garrett, "Call a council. Now. Everyone who has authority here. We need to discuss this." "You're not actually considering going?" "I'm considering all options, including the violent ones." Bon. The council chamber was a large tent at the sanctuary's heart. 30 wolves assembled, Commanders, trainers, representatives from each sanctuary location. Nyx sat at Lyra's right, Garrett at her left. The atmosphere could have been cut with a knife. Lyra stood, placed the box on the table where everyone could see. Malachi Thorne murdered 17 of our people, sent back a finger and a threat. He wants me to come to the Black Spire in 3 days, alone. She met each person's eyes in turn. I'm asking for counsel. What do we do? Silence. Then everyone spoke at once. It's a trap. We can't let this stand. Gather every fighter we have. You can't go alone. Lyra raised a hand. Quiet fell. One at a time. Nyx? The young wolf stood. It's obviously a trap. He wants to kill you or capture you. Either removes our leadership and cripples the sanctuary network. We can't let you go. Murmurs of agreement. Garrett? The older wolf was slower to stand. Nyx is right about the trap, but she's wrong about our options. If we don't respond, if we show weakness, every territory will think they can murder our people without consequence. We have to hit back. How? Someone asked. We have 300 trained fighters across all locations. We mobilize. March on the Black Spire. Show Malachi and everyone watching that we're not victims anymore. More murmurs, some supportive, some uncertain. That's war, another commander said. Open war with the Eastern Territories. We're not ready for that. Then when will we be ready? Garrett shot back. They just killed 17 refugees under our protection. If we don't respond, we're not a sanctuary. We're a graveyard waiting to happen. The argument escalated. Voices overlapping, some calling for immediate retaliation, others urging caution. The tent filled with anger and fear and the desperate need to do something, anything, that felt like control. Lyra listened to all of it, weighed every argument, felt the weight of 17 dead wolves pressing on her chest. Finally, she spoke. I'm going. The tent went silent. Alone, like he asked. Lyra, no. Nyx started. Listen to me, all of you. Lyra's voice cut through objections. Malachi wants a war. Wants us to come in force so he can paint us as the aggressors, unite the territories against the obsidian threat. But if I go alone, if I walk into his trap, she smiled grimly, then I'm just one wolf, one person. Harder to spin as an invasion. You'll die, Garrett said flatly. Maybe, maybe not. I've survived worse odds. She looked around the table. But if I don't come back, if something happens, you all know what to do. You don't need me to lead this. You never did. That's not... It is true. Lyra's voice softened. I started this because I was angry and broken and needed purpose. But it's grown beyond me, beyond any one person. The sanctuary network survives because of all of you, not because of what I am. She stood. I leave at dawn. Garrett, you have command while I'm gone. Nyx, you're his second. The rest of you, keep building, keep training, keep proving we matter, no matter what happens at the Black Spire. Lyra walked out before anyone could argue further. She made it 10 feet before Nyx caught up. This is suicide, the young wolf said. Probably. Then why? Lyra stopped. Looked at her friend, fierce, loyal, everything she wished she'd had at that age. Because 17 people died trusting me to keep them safe, and I failed, so now I owe them something. Justice, revenge, reckoning, call it whatever you want. And if you die trying to deliver it, then I die doing something that matters. There are worse endings. Lyra touched Nyx's shoulder. Take care of them, all of them. They'll need someone strong when I'm gone. You're coming back. Sure, fam. Lyra smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm coming back. She left Nyx standing there, went to her small shelter, packed light, weapons, basic supplies, nothing she couldn't carry at a run. As she worked, someone knocked. Come in. Garrett entered, closed the flap behind him. You know this is insane. You said we had to respond. I said we had to hit back, not that you had to martyr yourself. He sat heavily on her bedroll. There's something you're not telling us about why you're really going. Lyra's hand stilled on her pack. What makes you say that? Because I've fought beside you for 6 months, watched you make decisions. You're strategic, careful. This? He gestured at her preparations. This is reckless, personal. So what's the real reason? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm tired, Garrett. Of what? Of being responsible for everyone. Of every choice I make affecting hundreds of lives. Of carrying this power that I didn't ask for and can't fully control. She sat across from him. When I go to the Black Spire, when I face Malachi, it'll just be me. My choices. My consequences. No one else dies for my decisions. That's not how leadership works. I know. That's why I'm a terrible leader. She managed a real smile this time. But I'm a pretty good fighter, and sometimes that's more useful. Garrett shook his head. You really believe you're not coming back? I believe I'm walking into something I don't understand, something old and dangerous and designed specifically to kill what I am. She met his eyes. But yeah, I think the odds are bad. Then don't go. I have to. Why? Because if I don't, someone else will. You, Nick, some other fool who thinks they can handle Malachi. Lyra stood. Better me than them. I've already died once. Rejection was supposed to kill me. Everything since has been borrowed time anyway. Garrett stood too, gripped her shoulder. For what it's worth, you're not a terrible leader. You're just a leader who cares too much. Is there a difference? Yeah, terrible leaders send others to die. Good ones are willing to die themselves. He headed for the exit, paused. 3 days. If you're not back in 3 days, we're coming for you. All of us. Don't. Whatever happens, don't waste lives on... Not your decision anymore. Garrett looked back. You put me in command, remember? And I say we don't abandon our own, not even suicidal ones who walk into obvious traps. He left. Lyra finished packing. Lay down on her bedroll, stared at the tent ceiling, tried not to think about how it felt to be walking toward her own death. Failed completely. Ntuk. She left before dawn. Alone. On foot. The journey to the Black Spire took 2 days of hard travel. Through forests that grew darker the farther east she went. Past villages where wolves watched from behind curtains but didn't come out. Across rivers that ran black with something that wasn't quite water. The eastern territories felt wrong, corrupted, like something had been poisoned at the root and spread through the whole region. The Black Spire itself rose from a valley of dead trees, a tower of obsidian stone, natural formation twisted by magic into something architectural. It spiraled up hundreds of feet, reflecting nothing, absorbing light like a wound in reality. Lyra approached at sunset of the second day. Exactly as instructed, guards met her at the base. 20 of them. They moved like Garrett's informant had described. Wrong. Too fluid. Eyes that didn't quite focus. The smell of rot and old magic. Lord Malachi is expecting you, one said. Voice flat. Dead. They didn't restrain her, didn't need to. She'd come willingly. That was the point. They led her inside. The tower's interior was worse than its exterior. Walls carved with symbols that hurt to look at. Floors made from bones. Wolf bones, Lyra realized with growing horror. Thousands of them, fused together into a foundation of death. Up spiraling stairs. Past chambers filled with things she didn't want to examine. Higher and higher, until her ears popped and breathing became difficult. Finally, they reached the top chamber. Lord Malachi Thorne stood at the center, surrounded by a circle of symbols drawn in what looked like blood. He was tall, impossibly tall, like his spine had been stretched, and thin to the point of skeletal. His colorless eyes fixed on Lyra with the intensity of someone who'd waited centuries for this moment. The last obsidian. His voice matched his appearance, dry, ancient, wrong. I wondered if you'd actually come. You murdered my people. I came to return the favor. Did you? Malachi smiled. All teeth, too many teeth. How delightfully aggressive. But I think we both know you're not here for revenge. You're here because you're curious, because you want to understand what you are, what you could become. He gestured around the chamber. I can show you. I can teach you things your little sanctuary never could. By killing 17 refugees? By demonstrating the stakes? By showing you that this power, this obsidian blood, is not a gift. It's a curse. A plague that needs to be eradicated. His expression didn't change. But you could be different. You could choose to help me finish what was started 300 years ago. Lyra stared. You want me to help you genocide my own bloodline? I want you to understand that the obsidian wolves were never meant to exist. They were a mistake, an overcorrection, power too great for any one being to wield. Every generation they've appeared, they've brought chaos, war, the collapse of order. Malachi moved closer. You feel it already, don't you? The pull toward dominance, the need to control, to reshape the world according to your vision. That's not leadership. That's tyranny waiting to be born. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you. I've studied your kind for 3 centuries, hunted them, killed them, burned their bloodlines to ash. He stopped just outside the circle. And every single one, every single obsidian wolf believed they were different, special, that they could control the power. They were all wrong. So you kill them? Murder entire families, children? To prevent worse, to ensure the natural order survives. Malachi's tone was almost gentle. You've already seen it start. The way wolves bow without understanding why. The way you can feel their bonds like threads to manipulate. How long before that temptation becomes too great? How long before you decide the world would be better if everyone simply obeyed? Lyra's hands clenched. I would never... They all said that too. A door opened behind her. Lyra spun, and her world shattered. Garrett walked in. Calm. Composed. Not restrained. Not fighting. Walking in willingly. Garrett? Lyra's voice came out strangled. What? I'm sorry, he said. Didn't sound sorry. Sounded relieved. But he's right, about all of it. I've watched you, Lyra. Watched the power grow. Watched you struggle to control it. And I've seen what happens when you lose control. The shadows. The compulsion. It's only a matter of time before... Before what? Lyra's voice rose. Before I become a monster? Is that what you think I am? I think you're becoming one, and I can't let that happen. Garrett pulled something from his pocket. A knife. Old. Ritual markings etched into the blade. Malachi showed me the texts, showed me what obsidian wolves have done throughout history. The wars, the enslavements, the collapse of civilizations. You're not different, Lyra. You're just the newest iteration of a cycle that needs to end. Lyra felt like she'd been gutted. I trusted you. I know. I made you second in command, put the sanctuary in your hands. Believed you'd protect them if I died. I will protect them. By removing the thing that puts them at greatest risk. Garrett's expression was stone. You. Malachi watched the exchange with satisfaction. You see? Even those closest to you understand the truth. The obsidian bloodline is poison, and you're the last drop that needs to be purged. Lyra couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 6 months. 6 months she'd fought beside Garrett, trained with him, trusted him, built something she thought mattered, and he'd been working with Malachi the entire time. How long? She asked quietly. Since the beginning. Garrett met her eyes without flinching. Malachi approached me the first week you arrived at the sanctuary, showed me the truth, made me understand what we were harboring. So everything, the training, the expansion, the alliance with Darius, all of it was just to get me here? All of it was to buy time, to gather evidence, to prove to the other territories that you needed to be stopped. Garrett moved to stand beside Malachi, and to get close enough to obtain what we needed for the ritual. What ritual? Malachi gestured to the circle of symbols. Severance. We're going to rip the obsidian power from your blood permanently, leave you as nothing but a common wolf, powerless, harmless. And if I refuse? You came here willingly, walked into the tower, stand in the chamber of your own free will. Malachi smiled. The ritual doesn't need your permission. It just needs you present. And we have that. Lyra looked around. The symbols were glowing now, activating. She could feel them pulling at something deep inside her, the power, the obsidian blood, the thing that had woken when Darius rejected her. She tried to move. Couldn't. Her feet were locked in place, invisible chains binding her to the spot. Garrett, her voice cracked. Please, don't do this. I have to. The sanctuary, the wolves we saved, they need to be free of your influence, free to make their own choices without your power compelling them. Garrett's jaw tightened. I'm sorry it has to be this way. I really am, but this is mercy. We're letting you live, just diminished. Diminished, Lyra laughed. It came out broken. You're going to strip away the only thing that makes me able to protect them, to fight for them, to give them something worth believing in. You were never protecting them. You were using them to build your own kingdom, your own power base. Garrett turned away. Malachi was right. You're exactly like every obsidian before you, just better at pretending otherwise. The symbols flared brighter. Lyra felt the pull intensify, felt her power being dragged toward the surface. Fighting it was like trying to hold water in her bare hands. Malachi began chanting, words in a language older than pack law, older than wolfkind, ancient and terrible and designed for one purpose: to unmake her. Lyra's eyes turned black, not by choice, defense mechanism, the obsidian blood surging to protect itself. Shadows erupted around her, writhing, desperate, but they couldn't break the circle, couldn't cross the symbols. The ritual was specifically designed to contain obsidian power, to trap it, to rip it out by the roots. "Stop fighting," Malachi said over his chanting. "You're only making it hurt worse." Lyra didn't stop fighting. Couldn't, because if the power was ripped away, she'd be nothing, literally nothing. The girl Darius had rejected, the nobody with no pack, no family, no rank, everything she'd become in the last 6 months, the strength, the purpose, the ability to protect others, gone. She'd rather die. The thought crystallized into clarity. She'd rather die than go back to being powerless. And that realization hit like ice water. Because it meant Garrett was right, meant she'd become dependent on the power, addicted to it, defined by it in ways she hadn't wanted to admit. The shadows faltered. Malachi's chanting intensified. Lyra felt the power being pulled from her veins like roots being torn from earth. Felt herself coming apart. Felt everything she'd built and become and fought for dissolving into. A voice echoed through the chamber. "Stop." Everyone froze. A figure materialized from shadows in the corner. Impossible shadows. Ones that shouldn't exist in a ritual chamber designed to contain obsidian magic. The figure stepped forward into torchlight, and Lyra's already shattered world fractured further. It was Cassandra. Darius's second. The red-haired woman from the Northern Kingdom. But she looked different now. Her eyes were black. Completely black, just like Lyra's when the power manifested. "You're making a mistake, Malachi," Cassandra said calmly. The ancient lord stared. "That's impossible. The Northern Second isn't obsidian. I've verified the bloodlines." "You verified what I wanted you to verify." Cassandra moved into the room with predatory grace. "Did you really think you were the only one hunting obsidian wolves? The only one gathering intelligence? Planning centuries ahead?" Malachi's colorless eyes narrowed. "What are you?" "Something older than you. Something that's been waiting for this exact moment, for the last 2 obsidian wolves to be in the same place." Cassandra smiled. "So we could finish what was started. Not the way you planned, the way it was always meant to end." She looked at Lyra. "I'm sorry about this. I really am. But you understand better than anyone. Sometimes the only way to survive is to become what terrifies you most." Cassandra raised her hand. The shadows in the chamber responded. Not Lyra's, not the rituals, hers. And Lyra understood with horrifying clarity Garrett's betrayal, Malachi's ritual, her own capture. None of it was the real trap. This was. Cassandra's shadows struck, not at Malachi, not at Garrett, at Lyra. They wrapped around her like chains, pulled her from the ritual circle, dragged her toward Cassandra with irresistible force. "What are you doing?" Malachi shouted. "The ritual was never going to work. You can't sever obsidian power with blood magic. I should know. I've tried." Cassandra's grip on Lyra tightened. "But you can transfer it, absorb it, take it from one vessel and pour it into another." Lyra thrashed, fought, but Cassandra's power was overwhelming, centuries old, refined. Everything Lyra's wasn't. "You're obsidian," Lyra gasped. "You've been hiding for 300 years since the Purge, playing the loyal second, the trusted advisor, waiting for another of my kind to manifest." Cassandra's face was inches from Lyra's now. "And you did. You woke up, became powerful, built a following, made yourself visible. So you could steal it. So I could complete myself. 1 obsidian wolf is dangerous, 2 is apocalyptic, but 1 with the power of 2? Cassandra's eyes gleamed. That's godhood. She pressed her palm against Lyra's chest and began to pull. Lyra screamed. The power tore from her like skin being flayed. Every cell shrieked, every nerve ignited. The obsidian blood that had defined her, saved her, made her strong, being ripped out and devoured by something older and infinitely more ruthless. Garrett watched in horror. This wasn't, you said we'd sever her power, not, I lied. Cassandra didn't even look at him. The way you lied to her. Funny how betrayal works, isn't it? Malachi raised his hands, started a new chant. Attack magic this time. Cassandra flicked her free hand. The ancient lord exploded, not metaphorically, literally burst apart, blood and bone spraying across the chamber. His guards rushed in. Cassandra's shadows caught them, crushed them, discarded them like trash, all while still pulling power from Lyra. Stop, Lyra begged. Her voice was breaking, her vision graying. Please, I can't. I've waited too long, planned too carefully. You're the last piece, the final component. Cassandra's grip tightened. And when I'm done, when I have both bloodlines merged, I'm going to remake this world, burn the pack system, destroy the hierarchies, create something new from the ashes. That's what I wanted. I know. That's what made you perfect. Made you trust me when I sent you alliance offers. Made you believe the Northern Kingdom was changing. Cassandra smiled sadly. You were so desperate to believe the world could be better. It made you easy to manipulate. Lyra's power was almost gone now. She could feel the emptiness spreading, feel herself becoming hollow, becoming nothing, becoming the girl Darius had rejected. And in that moment of absolute loss, something shifted in her mind. She'd built her entire identity around the power, around being strong, being dangerous, being someone who mattered. But before the power, before the rejection, before the obsidian blood woke, she'd been a survivor, not because of magic, not because of strength, because she refused to quit. That had never been the power. That had always been her. Lyra stopped fighting Cassandra's pull. Let the power go. Cassandra's eyes widened. What are you? Lyra headbutted her. The connection broke. Cassandra staggered back, shocked. The power transfer interrupted midstream. Lyra collapsed, powerless, empty, but free, and alive. Garrett rushed forward. Lyra, stay away from me. Her voice was raw, broken. You don't get to help. You don't get to pretend you care. Cassandra recovered, shadows coiling around her, augmented now by what she'd stolen from Lyra. That was stupid. Giving up your power doesn't save you. It just makes killing you easier. Maybe. Lyra forced herself to stand. Her body felt wrong without the power. Too light, too fragile, too human. But I'd rather die as myself than live as your battery. Cassandra raised her hand. Granted. Shadows surged forward. Lyra closed her eyes, waited for death. It didn't come. She opened her eyes. Garrett stood between her and Cassandra, his chest pierced by shadow, blood pouring from his mouth. Garrett! I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I believed. He collapsed. Cassandra pulled her shadows back. Annoyed. Touching, but pointless. He can't save you. No. A new voice from the doorway. But I can. Darius stepped into the chamber, flanked by 50 northern wolves, all armed, all radiating alpha dominance. Cassandra, he said quietly, step away from her. His second, or former second, laughed. You can't be serious. You have no idea what I am, what I've become. I know you've been lying to me for 300 years. I know you manipulated this entire situation. And I know, his voice went cold, that you just killed Malachi, which means the eastern territories are about to descend into chaos unless someone takes control. And you think that someone is you? I think I'm here with 50 alphas and you're alone in a tower surrounded by corpses. Darius drew his sword. So yes, I think the odds favor me. Cassandra looked at Lyra, then at Darius, then at the assembled wolves. This isn't over, she said. It is for today. Cassandra's shadows exploded outward, blinding, deafening. When they cleared, she was gone. Just gone. Darius rushed to Lyra, caught her as her legs gave out. Can you walk? Don't have much choice. He helped her up. Looked at Garrett, dying on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The older wolf's eyes found Lyra's. I was wrong. About everything. I'm sorry. He died before finishing. Lyra felt nothing, should have felt grief, felt rage, felt something. But the power had taken everything when it left her hollow, empty, numb. We need to move, Darius said. This tower is going to collapse. The magic keeping it stable died with Malachi. The floor beneath them groaned, cracked. Darius's wolves moved fast, got everyone out. The tower fell minutes later, centuries of dark magic unraveling in spectacular destruction. They made camp 5 miles away, set up tents, treated wounds. Lyra sat alone by a fire, staring at nothing. Darius found her an hour later. We need to talk. About? About what happens next. Cassandra's still out there. With power she stole from you, and the Sanctuary Network, they're going to need leadership. I can't lead them. I'm not... Lyra's voice cracked. I'm nothing now. Just a common wolf. No power. No purpose. That's not true, isn't it? Everything I built was based on being obsidian, being different, being strong. Without that, she looked at him. I'm just the girl you rejected. Nothing special, nothing worth... Stop. Darius sat beside her. I was wrong. About you. About what strength means, about everything. He was quiet for a moment. You think the power made you special? It didn't. You were always special. The power just let you see it. Easy for you to say you've never been powerless. Haven't I? He laughed bitterly. I've spent 30 years being exactly what everyone expected. The strong alpha, the dominant king, never questioning, never choosing, just existing inside a role someone else defined. He looked at her. You showed me there was another way, not through power, through choice, through refusing to accept what the world said you had to be. Lyra was quiet. The sanctuary doesn't need an obsidian wolf, Darius continued. It needs someone who understands what it means to be rejected, to be thrown away, to rebuild from nothing. You're still that person. Power or no power. And if I can't protect them anymore, can't fight for them, then you teach them to fight for themselves. Isn't that what you were doing anyway? Lyra stared into the fire, felt the emptiness where her power used to be, felt the absence of something she'd become dependent on. But underneath that, underneath the loss, she was still breathing, still thinking, still refusing to quit. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that had always been enough. Cassandra will come back, she said quietly, with my power added to hers. She'll be unstoppable. Then we'll figure out how to stop her. Together. Darius stood, offered his hand. If you'll have me. If you'll trust me after everything I did. Lyra looked at his hand. At the king who'd rejected her, who'd called her nothing, who'd just saved her life. She took it, let him pull her to her feet. I don't trust you, she said, but I'll work with you, for now, until Cassandra's dealt with. Fair enough. They stood together in the firelight, 2 broken wolves trying to figure out how to fight a god. Behind them, in the ruined east, something stirred. Cassandra stood on a cliff overlooking the devastation. The power thrummed through her, doubled, magnified, intoxicating. She'd waited 300 years. She could wait a little longer. Let them think they'd won. Let them rebuild. Let them hope. And then she'd show them what true obsidian power looked like, when it wasn't shackled by mercy, or doubt, or anything resembling humanity. She smiled into the darkness and began to plan. Maybe the real question wasn't how to get her power back. Maybe it was whether she'd ever needed it in the first place. Lyra turned the knife over in her hands. Just steel, just a tool. No magic humming through it. No shadows coiling at her command. The blade caught firelight and threw it back, honest and simple. Her tent flap opened. Nick stepped in without asking. The young wolf's face was a storm of emotions. Relief, rage, confusion. Is it true? Nix's voice shook. Garrett? He betrayed us. Worked with Malachi from the start. Died trying to fix it. Lyra set the knife down. Yeah, it's true. And your power? Gone. Cassandra stole most of it. What's left isn't enough to light a candle. Lyra met her eyes. I'm just a wolf now, regular, powerless. Nick sat down hard. We're fucked. Probably. Cassandra has god-level abilities. She knows everything about our network because she helped design the alliance. She can shadow walk between territories, and we have... Nyx gestured at Lyra. You. No offense. None taken. You're right. Lyra leaned back against the tent pole. But being right doesn't change what we have to do. Which is? Stop her before she burns down every territory and remakes the world in her image. How? We can't fight her. She'll massacre us. Then we don't fight her. Lyra's mind was working again, clear, sharp, the way it used to be before power made everything feel simple. We outsmart her. She's 300 years old. She's been planning this since before our grandparents were born. What makes you think? Because she wants something from me, specifically. Or she would have just killed me in that tower. Lyra stood, started pacing. She took my power but left me alive. Why? Nyx thought about it. Bait? Maybe. Or insurance? Or... Lyra stopped. She said I was the last piece, the final component, but she didn't finish the transfer. I interrupted it. So? So what if she didn't get everything? What if there's still something she needs, something only I have? The pieces were clicking together. She's not complete. Not yet. That's why she ran instead of killing everyone. You're guessing. I'm always guessing, but I'm usually right. Lyra grabbed her knife. We need to talk to Darius. Now. They found him in the command tent with 20 Northern Alphas, arguing over maps. The conversation died when Lyra entered. Darius looked up. We were just discussing. Cassandra needs something from me, Lyra interrupted. Something she didn't get when she stole my power. We need to figure out what before she comes back for it. One of the Alphas, older male, scarred face, snorted. And why should we listen to you? You lost your power. You're nobody now. Lyra's hand went to her knife. Old habit. Want to test that theory? The Alpha stood. You think a blade makes you... Darius raised his hand. Marcus, sit down. Your Majesty, with respect, this girl is the reason Cassandra has god-tier power. If we hadn't formed that alliance, hadn't trusted her network, we'd still have a traitor as my second and no idea what we were actually fighting. Darius's voice went cold. Lyra exposed her, cost her everything to do it. So yes, we're going to listen. Marcus sat, muttered something under his breath. Lyra ignored him, spread her hands on the map table. Cassandra spent 300 years hiding, playing the loyal advisor. Then I show up and suddenly she's making moves, stealing power, revealing herself. Why? You said it yourself, another Alpha offered. You were the last component. But of what? What is she actually building? Lyra traced routes on the map. She could have taken the Northern Throne any time, could have killed Darius decades ago. But she didn't. She waited. For me. Specifically. Darius leaned forward. You think it's about the bloodline, two obsidian wolves combining power. I think it's about completion. The obsidian purged 300 years ago. It wasn't random. It was surgical. They hunted specific wolves, specific family lines. Lyra looked up. What if Cassandra isn't just stealing power? What if she's trying to reunite something that was deliberately separated? Like what? I don't know. That's the problem. We need someone who understands obsidian history, real history, not the propaganda version. She turned to Darius. Is there anyone? Any scholar who survived the purge? Any records that weren't burned? Darius exchanged glances with his Alphas. There's one possibility. My grandfather kept a private library, forbidden texts, things the pack councils tried to destroy, but he preserved for historical purposes. Where? Northern capital, deep vaults, heavily guarded. How fast can we get there? 12 hours hard ride. But Lyra, he hesitated. Those texts are sealed for a reason. Some of them contain rituals, summoning circles, ways to access power that should stay buried. Good. That's exactly what we need. Lyra straightened. Cassandra won't wait. She's already planning her next move. We need answers, and we need them now. Marcus stood again. This is insane. We should be mobilizing our forces, fortifying positions, not chasing ancient texts because a powerless girl has a theory. You got a better plan? Lyra asked. Yes. We find Cassandra and kill her before she gets stronger. With what? She has my power plus 300 years of her own. She walked through Malachi's guards like they were paper. You think your army's going to do better? We have numbers. Bs. She has shadows that can crush 50 wolves without trying. Lyra's voice rose. I saw it. Watched her explode a 3-century-old lord like he was nothing. Your numbers don't mean shit against that. Then what do you suggest? We sit around reading while she burns down territories? I suggest we figure out what she's actually trying to accomplish before we throw lives at a fight we can't win. Lyra slammed her hand on the table. I'm tired of wolves dying because we're too proud to think. So yeah, we're going to that library, and you can either help or get out of the way. Silence. Then Darius spoke. We ride at dawn. Marcus, assemble an escort, 20 of our best. Nyx, he looked at the young wolf. I need you to return to the sanctuary. Tell them what happened. Prepare them for the possibility that Cassandra attacks while we're gone. I should stay with Lyra Sheh. You should protect our people. That's the order. Nyx looked at Lyra. Lyra nodded. The young wolf left, unhappy but obedient. The alphas filed out, leaving Lyra and Darius alone. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Go to the capital. Risk yourself. You've already lost your power. You could walk away. Build a normal life. Normal life, Lyra laughed without humor. I wouldn't know what that looked like if it bit me. Then let me protect you. Stay here. Let my wolves handle. No. She met his eyes. This is my mess, my bloodline, my responsibility to fix. It's not your fault, Cassandra. Oh, isn't it? I'm the one who woke up the obsidian blood, who made myself visible, who built something worth noticing. Lyra's hands clenched. If I'd just stayed small, stayed broken, stayed the rejected mate you threw away, none of this happens. You don't actually believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. I just know that 17 wolves died because of me. Garrett died because of me. And if I don't fix this, more will follow. She grabbed her pack, started loading supplies. So yeah, I'm going to your library. I'm going to find answers, and I'm going to figure out how to kill a god. Darius watched her work. For what it's worth, I don't think you needed the power, to be dangerous, to matter. I think you've always been both. Save the pep talk. I'm not looking for validation. Then what are you looking for? Lyra stopped, stared at the knife in her hands. A way to win that doesn't require me to become what I'm fighting. She strapped the blade to her belt, walked out into the night. Tomorrow they'd ride for answers. Tonight she'd sit with her ghosts. What? Dawn came too fast. Lyra mounted a horse provided by Darius's wolves. She wasn't a great rider, never had access to horses before, but she learned fast. Had to. Darius rode beside her. 20 northern alphas flanked them in formation, all armed, all dangerous, all watching Lyra like she might explode. They rode hard through territories still reeling from Malachi's death. Eastern packs fought over the power vacuum. Villages burned. Refugees streamed toward any border that would take them. This is what Cassandra wanted, Darius said as they passed a burning settlement. Chaos, disorder, the pack system tearing itself apart. She'll rebuild it, Lyra replied, in her image, without hierarchies or bonds or anything except her will. You sound certain. I understand her, more than I want to. Lyra's hands tightened on the reins. She's doing what I would have done if the power had corrupted me completely. Burn it all down, start over, make something new. The difference is, you chose not to. I didn't choose anything. The choice was made for me when she ripped the power out. Lyra's voice went flat. Don't make me noble. I'm just the lesser evil by accident. They rode in silence after that. 12 hours became 10, then 8. They pushed the horses harder than they should, didn't stop except to water them. The northern capital rose from the horizon at sunset. Massive walls, guard towers, the sprawling city that housed Darius's throne. Lyra had never actually seen it, had been rejected and exiled before getting a proper tour. Guards at the gate recognized their king, opened without question. Inside, the city was beautiful in a brutal way. Stone architecture that prioritized strength over aesthetics. Wolves everywhere, pack members living under Darius's protection. Markets, training yards, the organized chaos of a functioning kingdom. They rode straight to the palace, dismounted in a courtyard lined with statues of past kings. All of them looked stern, unyielding, perfect. Darius looked small standing among them. "This way," he said. They descended, down stairs that spiraled into bedrock, past guard posts where soldiers stood at attention, deeper and deeper until the air grew cold and the torches became necessary. Finally, they reached a door. Heavy iron, sealed with locks that hadn't been opened in decades. Darius pulled out a key, old, ornate. "My grandfather gave this to me on his deathbed, made me promise I'd never use it unless the kingdom itself was at stake." "Is it? If Cassandra wins, there won't be a kingdom left to stake." He turned the key. The locks clicked open. The door swung inward with a groan that sounded like a warning. Beyond was a library carved from living rock. Shelves stretched into darkness, thousands of books, tens of thousands, all of them forbidden, all of them preserved. "Where do we even start?" Marcus muttered. "Marcus, obsidian wolves," Lyra said. "Anything about their origins, their powers, their—" She stopped, sniffed the air. "Do you smell that?" Darius frowned. "Smell what?" "Blood. Fresh." Lyra drew her knife. "We're not alone." Shadows moved between the shelves. Then Cassandra stepped into the torchlight. She looked different, stronger. The power she'd stolen from Lyra had integrated fully. Her eyes glowed with black fire. Shadows writhed around her like pets. "I was wondering when you'd come here," she said calmly. "Took you longer than expected." Darius's wolves drew weapons, formed a protective circle around their king. Cassandra laughed. "Really? You think steel will stop me?" "It'll slow you down," Lyra said. She stepped forward, blade ready. "Long enough." "For what?" "You're powerless. I can feel the absence in you, the hollow where something magnificent used to live." Cassandra tilted her head. "Does it hurt? Knowing what you were and can never be again?" "Every second." "Good. Then you understand why I'm doing this. Why I'm going to tear down everything and rebuild it." Cassandra's expression was almost sympathetic. "They took our power, declared us aberrations, hunted us like animals. For 300 years I've hidden, pretended. Served wolves who didn't deserve to lick my boots. But no more." "So this is revenge? You're going to genocide pack wolves because they hurt you? I'm going to free them, from bonds they didn't choose, from hierarchies that crush them, from the lie that some are born to rule and others to serve." Cassandra's shadows expanded. "Just like you wanted, Lyra. Just like your precious sanctuary was trying to build. I'm finishing what you started. By killing everyone who disagrees? By removing obstacles, the way you removed corrupt alphas, the way you dismantled Darius's border territories." Cassandra smiled. "We're the same. You just lack the conviction to finish. We're nothing alike." "No? You stood in a ceremonial circle ready to kill a king. You built an army of outcasts. You challenged the entire pack system." Cassandra moved closer. The alphas around Darius tensed but didn't attack. Too afraid. "The only difference between us is I'm willing to pay the full price, and you're still pretending there's a way to win without getting your hands bloody." "There is." "Then show me. Right now. Prove you can stop me without power, without violence, without becoming what you fear." Cassandra spread her arms. "Go ahead. I'll wait." Lyra's mind raced. Cassandra was right. Without power, without an army, without anything except a knife and failing courage, what could she actually do? The answer came from an unexpected place. Not from strength, from understanding. "You said I was the last piece," Lyra said slowly. "The final component. But you didn't finish the transfer. Why?" Cassandra's expression flickered. Just for a second. "I have what I need." "Do you? Because if you did, you wouldn't be here. Wouldn't need these texts." Lyra gestured at the library. "You're looking for something you thought you'd find in me but didn't. Careful, little wolf. You're guessing at things you don't understand. Then explain it to me." You want me to see your vision? To understand why this is necessary? Explain what you're actually trying to accomplish. Silence. Cassandra weighed the question. Then, the obsidian bloodline was split, deliberately. 300 years ago, when they realized what we could become together, they separated us into fragments, lesser versions, kept apart so we could never... She stopped, realized she'd said too much. Lyra pressed, "Never what? Never become whole? Never access the full power?" Understanding crystallized. You need both bloodlines, yours and mine, but they're not the same. Are they? They're complementary, two halves of something that was broken. Divided, Cassandra corrected. Not broken. Divided. One bloodline controls shadows. The other controls bonds. Separate. We're dangerous. Together. Her eyes gleamed. Together, we're absolute. So when you stole my power, you only got half. The shadow manipulation. But the bond control, the ability to forge and break connections, that's still locked inside me. Somewhere you couldn't reach. Cassandra's smile was sharp. Very good. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. And you need it. Need me willing. Need me to surrender the bond aspect the way I surrendered the shadows. Lyra's grip tightened on her knife. That's why I'm still alive. That's why you're still useful. Cassandra took a step closer. The shadows followed. Give me what's left. Let me complete the transformation, and I'll make you my second, my partner. We'll reshape the world together. No. Then I'll rip it from you the way I ripped the shadows. It'll hurt more, take longer, but I'll have it eventually. Try. Lyra raised her blade. But know this? I'll fight every second, make you work for every piece. And when you finally have it all, when you're standing over my corpse thinking you've won, remember that I never stopped resisting. Cassandra's expression hardened. So be it. She moved, fast, too fast to track. One moment 20 feet away, the next right in front of Lyra. Hand reaching for her throat, Lyra ducked, slashed with her knife. The blade passed through shadow, connected with nothing. Cassandra's laugh echoed. Did you really think steel would hurt me? Darius attacked. Sword gleaming, his alphas joined, 20 wolves moving in coordinated assault. Cassandra didn't even look at them. Her shadows caught them mid-strike, held them suspended, helpless. Disappointing, she said. I expected better from the great Alpha King. She flicked her wrist. Darius flew backward, crashed into shelves, books rained down. The Alphas struggled against shadow bindings, couldn't break free. Lyra was alone, powerless, facing a god. Cassandra turned back to her. Last chance. Give me the bond aspect, willingly, or I take it along with your life. Lyra's mind worked desperately. She couldn't fight, couldn't run, couldn't win, but she could stall. You're afraid, Lyra said. Cassandra paused. Excuse me? You're afraid that even with both bloodlines, you won't be enough. That's why you're here, why you need these texts. Lyra gestured at the library. You're looking for the completion ritual, the one that makes the merger permanent, but you don't know how it works. I know enough. Then why wait? Why not just tear it from me and be done? Cassandra's jaw tightened. The bond aspect is delicate. Ripping it too aggressively could damage it, make it unusable. I need you compliant, which means you're not as powerful as you pretend. You're still limited, still vulnerable. Lyra smiled despite her terror. Still just a wolf playing at godhood. Cassandra's control snapped. Shadows exploded outward. Lyra was lifted off her feet, slammed against stone. The impact drove air from her lungs. Ribs cracked. You want to see godhood? Cassandra's voice was everywhere. I'll show you godhood. The shadows around her condensed, solidified, formed into shapes, wolves made of darkness. Dozens of them, all with glowing eyes and teeth like obsidian. Kill them, Cassandra commanded. All except Lyra. I want her alive. The shadow wolves attacked. Darius's alphas fought back, steel against shadow. It was a massacre. The shadow beast couldn't be cut, couldn't be stopped. They tore through the northern wolves like paper. Screams filled the library. Blood sprayed across ancient texts. Lyra struggled to her feet, ribs screaming, vision blurred. She had to do something, Had to. A shadow wolf lunged at her. She rolled. It crashed into the wall where she'd been. Stone cracked. Another came from the side. She barely deflected with her knife. The blade shattered against shadow flesh, defenseless now, wounded, surrounded. The shadow wolves circled, waiting for Cassandra's command. But Cassandra wasn't watching them. She was watching Lyra, studying her, looking for something. "You're more resilient than expected," she said. "Even without power, even facing certain death. You keep fighting. It's all I know how to do." "Then let me teach you something else." Cassandra waved her hand. The shadow wolves stopped attacking. "Surrender. Join me. I'll give you back your power, enhanced, amplified. Together we can build the world you dreamed of." "The world I dreamed of doesn't require murder. All change requires blood. You know that. You've spilled plenty yourself." Cassandra extended her hand. "Stop pretending you're above this. You're just like me. You just haven't admitted it yet." Lyra looked at the extended hand, at Cassandra's face, beautiful and terrible and completely certain. Then she looked at Darius, pinned by shadows, bleeding, watching her with an expression she couldn't read, at his alphas, dead or dying, sacrificed because they trusted their king, who trusted her. At the library, thousands of forbidden texts, answers they'd never get if she died here. She had one play left, one desperate, suicidal gamble. Lyra reached into her pocket, pulled out something she'd taken from the tower, something she'd grabbed while Cassandra was distracted by Garrett's death, a small vial filled with Malachi's blood. "You're right," Lyra said. "I am like you, which means I'm willing to do what it takes." She uncorked the vial, drank the contents. Cassandra's eyes widened. "What did you—" The blood hit Lyra's system like liquid fire. Malachi's magic, 3 centuries of accumulated dark power surged through her veins. Not obsidian, not shadow. Something else, something older. Death magic, blood rituals, forbidden practices that predated pack law. It was poison, would kill her within minutes. But for those minutes, Lyra felt power again, different from before, colder, darker, but power nonetheless. She smiled at Cassandra. "You want the bond aspect? Come take it." The shadows around her shattered. Malachi's magic repelled them. Cassandra's control over the shadow wolves wavered. "You're insane," Cassandra hissed. "That blood will kill you." "I know, but it'll be one hell of a fight first." Lyra moved, not with obsidian speed, with something worse, something unnatural. Her body was dying, but the magic puppeteered it forward, faster than thought, harder than steel. She reached Cassandra, grabbed her throat. They crashed into shelves together. Books fell like rain, ancient texts scattering. Lyra's hand squeezed. Cassandra's shadows tried to pry her off, but Malachi's magic held firm. Death calling to death. "You can't win this way," Cassandra gasped. "The blood will kill you before you kill me." "Don't need to kill you, just need to slow you down." Lyra could feel the poison spreading, feel her organs starting to fail. "Long enough for Darius to find the completion ritual, long enough to learn your weaknesses." "There are no weaknesses." "Everyone has weaknesses, even gods." Lyra's vision was darkening, especially false ones. Cassandra's shadows finally broke through, impaled Lyra through the stomach. Blood poured hot and fast. Lyra gasped, released her grip, fell backward, hit the ground hard. Cassandra stood over her, breathing hard. "You just killed yourself for nothing." "Did I?" Lyra coughed blood, smiled through it. "Look around." Cassandra did. The shadow wolves had dissolved when her concentration broke. Darius and his surviving alphas were free, and they'd used those precious seconds to grab texts, dozens of them, books about obsidian bloodlines, completion rituals, ancient histories. "No!" Cassandra started toward them. Darius threw something, a torch. It landed among the shelves, caught immediately. Fire spread fast through 300-year-old paper. "You bastard!" Cassandra screamed. "Those are irreplaceable." "That's the point." Darius grabbed Lyra, slung her over his shoulder. "Fall back, now!" His alphas ran, carrying their wounded, carrying the texts they'd grabbed, upstairs toward daylight and survival. Cassandra could have stopped them, could have killed them all. But the library was burning. thousands of texts turning to ash, knowledge lost forever. She chose the books, tried to save what she could, used shadows to smother flames, to preserve what remained. It gave Darius's group the seconds they needed to escape. They burst into the courtyard, daylight searing after the darkness. Behind them, smoke billowed from the vault entrance. Darius laid Lyra on the ground. She was dying, could feel it, the poison racing through her system, the shadow wound in her stomach, everything shutting down. "Why?" Darius asked. "Why sacrifice yourself?" "Had to buy time." Lyra's words came in gasps. "The texts, you got them?"
"Some. Maybe enough." He looked at her wound. "We need to get you to a healer." "Won't matter. Malachi's blood, designed to kill obsidian wolves, even partial ones." She laughed, tasted copper. "Ironic. Don't talk. Save your strength." "For what?" "I'm dead." "Either way." Lyra grabbed his hand. Promise you'll stop her. Find the weakness in the texts. Figure out how to kill a god. I promise."
"And the sanctuary? Protect them. They trusted me. Don't let that be for nothing." "I won't. I swear it." Lyra's vision was fading, darkness closing in from the edges. But before it took her completely, she saw something. Nyx, running across the courtyard. The young wolf dropped to her knees beside Lyra. "No, no, no!" Nyx pressed hands against the stomach wound. "You don't get to die. You don't get to leave me with this mess. You'll manage." Lyra smiled. "You're stronger than you think." "I'm not. I'm nothing without you." "Wrong. You were always something. I just showed you how to see it." Lyra's hand found Nyx's face. "Lead them. Protect them. Be what I couldn't be." "Lyra?" But the darkness was complete now, pulling her down into nothing, into the quiet place where rejected mates went when they finally stopped fighting. Except there was light in the darkness. Faint, distant, growing closer. A voice spoke. Familiar. Impossible. "Not yet, child. Your work isn't finished." Lyra opened her eyes. Except she didn't have eyes. Didn't have a body. Was just consciousness floating in an endless void. The light resolved into a figure. A woman. Old beyond measure. Her eyes were kind and terrible. Who? Names don't matter here. What matters is choice. The woman gestured and the void filled with images. Lyra's life, her rejection, her transformation, her battles. "You've been tested, broken, remade, but not completed." "I failed. Cassandra has the power. I'm dying."
"Dying is easy. Living is the challenge." The woman touched Lyra's essence. "The bond aspect you carry, it's not just power. It's understanding, connection, the ability to see and forge the threads that bind all wolves together. Cassandra wants it for control. But you could use it for healing." "I don't have time. I'm dead." "Are you?" "Look." The void shifted, showed Lyra's body in the courtyard. Nyx crying, Darius barking orders, and something else. A faint golden thread, stretched between Lyra and every wolf she'd helped, every rejected mate she'd saved, every exile she'd trained, hundreds of threads, thousands, all pulsing with shared determination, shared hope, shared refusal to quit. "The bond aspect isn't just in your blood," the woman said. "It's in your connections, the pack you built without hierarchy, the family you forged from outcasts, that power. That's what Cassandra can never steal, because it's not yours alone. It's theirs too." "Then how do I call them? Let them carry what you can't. Share the burden instead of bearing it alone." The woman smiled. "That's the difference between tyranny and leadership, between control and cooperation, between Cassandra's vision and yours." The light was fading, pulling back. "Wait, who are you?" "The first obsidian wolf. The one who started this bloodline, who learned too late that power shared is stronger than power hoarded." The woman's voice echoed as she disappeared. "Don't make my mistakes, child. Don't die alone when you could live together." The void collapsed. Lyra gasped, her lungs filled with air, her heart hammered, her eyes opened to see Nyx's tear-stained face. Lyra! Lyra! The young wolf laughed through sobs. You're alive! How? Lyra felt it. The threads. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Connecting her to every wolf who'd ever trusted her. Their strength flowing through the bonds. Their life energy sharing the burden of death. The poison was still there. The wound still open. But distributed across thousands of wolves, it became manageable. Survivable. She sat up. Pain flared but didn't overwhelm. Get me up, Lyra said. We have work to do. Darius helped her stand, stared at her like she'd risen from the dead. How is this possible? Long story. Short version. I'm not alone anymore. Never was. Just took dying to figure that out. Lyra looked around the courtyard. The texts. Where are they? Inside. My scholars are already studying. Good. We need answers fast. Cassandra won't stay distracted long. Lyra turned to Nyx. Send word to every sanctuary, every ally, every wolf who's ever trusted us. Tell them it's time. Time to stand together or die alone. Stand together for what? Lyra looked toward the smoke still rising from the vault, toward the threat that waited in the darkness, toward the god they had to kill. War, she said. Not the kind Cassandra wants, the kind she fears, where numbers don't matter as much as connections, where power isn't hoarded but shared, where the rejected and forgotten remind the world why they should have been feared all along. She smiled, grim and determined. Get everyone ready. Tomorrow we make our stand, and when Cassandra comes, and she will come, we're going to show her what happens when you underestimate wolves who've already lost everything. Nyx ran to spread the word. Darius watched Lyra. You're different. The power isn't power, not the way you think. It's not mine anymore, it's ours. Everyone connected to the sanctuary network. Everyone who chose to believe when belief was idiotic. Lyra met his eyes. Can't be stolen, can't be taken, only shared. And that's what makes it unstoppable. Inside the palace, scholars worked frantically through the rescued text, looking for the weakness, the flaw in Cassandra's transformation, the way to kill something that shouldn't be able to die. Lyra joined them. Read through forbidden knowledge, ancient warnings, rituals that predated civilization, and slowly, painfully, the answer emerged. The completion ritual Cassandra needed, it required not just both bloodlines but consent. True consent. Not coerced, not stolen, given freely by both parties. That's why she'd offered partnership, why she'd tried to convince Lyra to join her, because forcing the bond aspect would corrupt it, make the merger incomplete. Leave her powerful, but flawed, vulnerable. We can use this, Darius said. Lure her in, make her think you're willing, then strike when she's exposed. It's a trap that requires me to get close enough to touch her, to let her into my mind. Lyra's hands were shaking. If she realizes I'm faking consent, she'll kill me before I can. Then don't fake it. Everyone looked at him. What? Lyra asked. Give her real consent. Let her think she's won. Let her start the merger. But instead of resisting, flood her with every connection you have, every bond, every wolf in the network. Darius's eyes gleamed. Cassandra wants to absorb your power. Let's give her more than she can handle. That could kill everyone connected to me, or it could kill her. Overwhelm her with humanity she's spent 3 centuries avoiding. Drown her in connections she can't control. He gripped her shoulder. It's a gamble, but it's the only play we have. Lyra thought about it, weighed the risks, considered the cost, then nodded. Send out the call. Everyone connected to the sanctuary network needs to be ready. Tomorrow at dawn. We make our stand at the old ceremonial grounds, where this all started. Cassandra will know it's a trap. She'll come anyway because she's arrogant, because she thinks she's already won, and because, Lyra smiled darkly, she can't resist finishing what she started. The night passed in frantic preparation. Messages sent across territories, weapons sharpened, strategies debated. Lyra stood on the palace walls watching wolves gather. Hundreds at first, then thousands. Every sanctuary member who could travel, every ally who'd ever believed, every wolf who'd been rejected or exiled or thrown away. They came because she'd asked, because she'd shown them another way, because for the first time in their lives, someone had said they mattered. Dawn broke blood red across the horizon. Lyra descended from the walls, joined the assembled army, felt the bonds connecting them all.
thousands of threads, thousands of souls linked by choice and hope and desperate determination. Darius stood at her right, Nyx at her left. Behind them, an army of outcasts ready to face a god. "She's coming," someone said, pointing. On the horizon, shadows gathered, coalescing into a figure that walked like a storm made flesh. Cassandra arrived at the ceremonial grounds with the rising sun at her back. She looked at the assembled wolves, at Lyra standing at their center, at the trap that was obvious to anyone with eyes, and smiled. "So this is how it ends," she called across the distance. "You, me, everything we could have built, all of it coming down to this moment." "Not an ending," Lyra called back. "A reckoning," Cassandra laughed. "You really think you can beat me with this?" She gestured dismissively at the army. "I can feel your bonds. I can see the threads connecting you. Pretty, fragile, meaningless against true power." "Then prove it. Face me. Finish what you started." Lyra stepped forward. "Unless you're afraid."
Of you? Never. Cassandra moved into the circle. "But I'll give you one last chance. Join me, willingly, completely, and I'll spare them, all of them. We'll rebuild together, make something beautiful from these ashes." Lyra walked to meet her, stopped in the circle's center, where Darius had rejected her 6 months ago, where everything had started. "You want my consent?" Lyra asked. "I require it, for the merger to complete properly." "Then you have it, on one condition." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "What condition?" "You feel what I feel. You understand what you're actually taking." Lyra extended her hand. "All of it. Every connection, every bond, every wolf who chose to believe." Cassandra studied her, looking for the trap, for the angle. Then she smiled. Accepted. She took Lyra's hand, and the world ignited. The bonds activated, thousands of them, flooding through the connection between Lyra and Cassandra. Not power, humanity. Every rejected mate who'd found sanctuary. Every exile who'd discovered purpose. Every wolf who'd chosen hope over bitterness. Their experiences. Their pain. Their refusal to break despite everything. All of it poured into Cassandra at once. She gasped, staggered, tried to pull away, but Lyra's grip was iron. "You wanted to understand?" Lyra's voice was steady, despite the agony of the connection. "Feel it, all of it, every wolf you're trying to save by destroying them." Cassandra's eyes went wide. Black fire flickered and died. For the first time in 300 years, she felt what she'd spent centuries avoiding. Connection without control. Vulnerability without power. The raw, messy, beautiful chaos of actually caring about something beyond yourself. It was overwhelming. Marcus, exiled for protecting his sister from an abusive alpha, now training others to stand up to tyrants. Elena, rejected by her mate for being barren. Now helping young wolves understand their worth wasn't tied to biology. Thomas, rogue who'd killed to survive. Now teaching discipline and restraint to others who'd walked his path. Hundreds more. Thousands. Each one a story of survival, of choosing to become better instead of bitter, of finding meaning in the wreckage. Cassandra felt every single one, and it was destroying her. "Stop!" Her voice cracked. "Too much. Can't." "This is what you're trying to erase," Lyra said through gritted teeth. The connection was burning her too, ripping through her like acid. These connections, these choices, these messy, imperfect bonds that make us real instead of powerful. They're weak. They're human. And that's what you forgot how to be. Cassandra screamed. Shadows exploded outward in a desperate attempt to break free, but the bonds held, thousands of wolves lending their strength, their will, their absolute refusal to let another one of their own be consumed by darkness. The ceremonial ground cracked beneath them, stones splitting, ancient magic responding to forces it was never designed to contain. Darius shouted orders. "Hold the line. Whatever happens, nobody breaks formation." The assembled wolves tightened ranks, locked hands, reinforced the network, each one adding their thread to the tapestry, trying to contain a god. Inside the maelstrom, Lyra and Cassandra stood locked together, hand to hand, will to will, past to future. "You could have had this," Lyra said. Blood was running from her nose, her ears. The strain was killing her. "Could have built it instead of trying to steal it.
could have been part of something instead of above it.
I was alone, Cassandra gasped. For 300 years, everyone I loved, dead. Everything I built, ashes. You don't understand what that does, what it makes you become. You're right, I don't. I was only alone for 6 months before I found people who chose me. Lyra's grip tightened. But that's the difference between us.
You stayed alone by choice, stayed hidden, stayed convinced everyone else was the problem. They hunted us, and you became the monster they feared instead of proving them wrong. Instead of showing them we could be different. Lyra's voice softened despite the agony. You're 300 years old and you never learned the simplest truth. Power shared is stronger than power hoarded. The bonds intensified, thousands becoming tens of thousands, as word spread and wolves across territories added their strength. Everyone who'd ever been helped by the Sanctuary Network, everyone who'd heard the stories and believed. Cassandra was drowning in humanity she couldn't process, couldn't control, couldn't reshape into something manageable. I can't. Tears streaked her face, black and viscous. I can't hold all of this, then let go. If I let go, I'm nothing. I'm just a wolf, just alive, just real. Lyra pulled her closer, pressed their foreheads together. Just enough. For a moment, Cassandra teetered on the edge. 300 years of isolation warring with the connection being offered, the power she'd built versus the humanity she'd buried. Then something broke inside her. Not violently, quietly, like ice melting after an endless winter. She sobbed. The sound was raw and broken and utterly human. The shadows around her dissolved, not ripped away, released. The stolen power from Lyra flowing back through the connection, finding its original home. Lyra gasped as obsidian energy flooded her system. But it felt different now. Not hers alone. Shared across the network, distributed among thousands so no single wolf carried the weight. Cassandra collapsed. Lyra caught her, lowered them both to the cracked stone. The assembled wolves held their breath. Darius approached slowly, sword drawn, ready. Lyra? It's over. Lyra's voice was hoarse. She let go. Is she alive, powerless, human? Lyra looked down at Cassandra. The 300-year-old obsidian wolf looked small now, fragile. Just a woman who'd spent too long being afraid. She needs help, medical, psychological, everything we can give. She killed 17 of our people, someone shouted from the crowd. I know. She tried to genocide pack wolves. I know. Lyra stood, faced her army. And she'll answer for those crimes, face justice, make amends if that's even possible. But we don't execute broken wolves for being broken. We try to fix them. That's what makes us different from the pack system that rejected us. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some agreeing, some dissenting, all watching to see what came next. Nick stepped forward. What about the power she stole? The wolves she killed getting it? The power's back where it belongs. Shared across everyone who helped take her down. As for the dead, Lyra's voice cracked. We honor them. We remember them. We make sure their sacrifice meant something by being better than the people who hurt us. She looked at Cassandra, still unconscious, still breathing. Take her to the healers. Guard her. When she wakes, we'll figure out what justice looks like for someone who's lived 300 years running from herself. 4 wolves moved forward, lifted Cassandra carefully, carried her toward the palace. The crowd began to disperse, some satisfied, some uncertain, all processing what they'd witnessed. Lyra stood alone in the ceremonial circle, the same spot where Darius had rejected her, where everything had started. She felt different now. The power was back but altered, not concentrated, distributed. She could feel every wolf in the network, their emotions, their strength, their connection. It was beautiful and terrifying. Footsteps approached. Darius. He stood beside her without speaking for a long moment. Finally, you saved her. I stopped her. There's a difference. Most wolves would have killed her after everything she did. Most wolves haven't spent 6 months learning that revenge doesn't heal anything. Lyra sat down on the cracked stone, exhausted. Besides, she was right about some things. The pack system is broken. Hierarchy built on dominance creates wolves like her.
like Malachi, like every tyrant who's ever decided their power matters more than other people's lives. So what do we do? Tear it all down?
We build alternatives. Keep expanding the sanctuary network. Show wolves there's another way. Let them choose. She looked up at him. And maybe, eventually, the old system withers because nobody wants it anymore. Darius sat beside her. That could take generations. Probably. But I'm patient, and I'm not going anywhere. They sat in comfortable silence. The sun climbed higher. Around them, wolves began cleaning up, tending wounded, rebuilding what had been damaged in the confrontation. I never apologized, Darius said quietly, properly, for what I did, for rejecting you. You did apologize, multiple times. Words aren't enough. I destroyed you that night, called you nothing, threw you away like trash. His hands clenched. And you turned that destruction into something extraordinary. But that doesn't erase what I did, what I took from you. Lyra considered this. You're right, it doesn't. And I'm never going to forget standing in this circle while you severed our bond in front of everyone. That moment's carved into my bones. I understand if you can't forgive. I didn't say I can't forgive. I said I can't forget. There's a difference. She turned to face him. What you did was cruel, small, driven by fear of something you didn't understand. But you've spent the last 6 months trying to be better, trying to change your kingdom, trying to help instead of harm. That matters. So you forgive me? I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't a switch, it's a process. Some days I'm there, some days I want to punch you in the throat. She smiled slightly. Today's somewhere in the middle. Darius laughed. Actually laughed. Fair enough, but here's what I know. You're not the king who rejected me anymore. And I'm not the girl who got rejected. We're both different now, changed by everything that happened. So maybe instead of apologizing for the past, you just commit to being better in the future. I can do that. Good. Because I'm going to need allies, real ones. If we're going to reshape how pack wolves think about hierarchy and bonds and worth. Lyra stood, offered her hand. Partners? He took it. Partners. They shook. The bond that had been severed 6 months ago hummed faintly. Not romantic, not faded, just connected. Two wolves choosing to work together because they believed in something bigger than themselves. It felt right. Mkits. The days that followed were chaos of the productive kind. Cassandra woke 3 days after the confrontation. Disoriented, powerless, terrified. She tried to shadow walk and nothing happened. Tried to command and nobody listened. Tried to be what she'd been for 300 years and found only hollow emptiness. Lyra visited her in the secured medical wing, found her staring at walls, lost. You're awake, Lyra said. Cassandra flinched. Are you here to gloat? I'm here to talk. If you're willing. Silence. Then Cassandra gestured to a chair. Lyra sat. They looked at each other. Two obsidian wolves, one who'd chosen connection, one who'd chosen isolation. I don't know what I am anymore, Cassandra said finally. Without the power, without the mission, I'm just empty.